Welcome my channel guys. If you're looking for an amazing novel, visit my Patreon page. Your support will help turn this story into an exciting audiobook. Join me on this journey. Chapter 41, The Final Test. CG's POV. The Demon Hideout. CG? From the side. Giyu yelled while slashing the head's demons around him. Already on it. Wind breathing, first form. I whipped my sword and it created a gust of wind. Then I took in huge volumes of air with my mouth before releasing it with great force. Dust whirlwind cutter. I became a whirlwind of blades. A green tube made of wind energy covered my body as I minced everything in my path. I did not even aim for their heads, I merely reduced them into scraps of meat. Wind breathing was the most violent breathing style. It had zero accuracy or fitness, which was why I had a difficult time getting used to it. You just slash everything in your path like a tornado which ripped apart anything in its path. There was no targeting weak points, there was no efficiency. You just slice everything into tiny pieces so that you hit the target. It was very primal. The main concept was basically I'd slash. There was nothing else to it. The wind breathing itself gave you an incredible burst of energy. It allowed you to explode with extreme force, but unlike thunder breathing where you utilize that for linear speed, wind breathing lets you devastate everything in your surroundings. It was great for slaying groups of demons. The aftermath of my attack was blood and flesh raining down on me. I felt my eyes twitch as I was drenched in decaying blood of demons. I hate this breathing style. I murmured. I hate the style, I hate what it does, and I hate its Hashira. Then I whipped my sword to clean it from blood and looked towards the remaining demons. Although we had killed a couple dozen of them, there were at least 20 or so demons remaining. Demons were like animals. While the stronger ones with blood demon art were able to survive by themselves and even have territories where they hunted, the lesser demons would form groups to survive. The demons in this hideout were such lesser demons. They were not strong enough to survive on their own, so they worked together. Run, I said, and the demons who were frozen in fear immediately scattered around to save their horrible lives. I could see Giyu on the opposite side of this abandoned mansion, and he was also mowing down the demons like a well-oiled machine. My eyes glowed purple in the dark as I scanned the environment. The position of each demon, the direction they were running to, and the placement of objects in the mansion were immediately registered in my mind like a mental map. I took into account all of the movements I saw around me. I determined their speed and where they would be by the time I reached them. I predicted around 4 seconds into the future. Then I acted on that future. Water breathing, third form. Flowing dance. I danced. My footsteps were perfect, so it looked like I was sliding on the floor instead of taking steps. My movements were elegant and flawless as I left behind afterimage wherever I went. I slashed, not directly at them but instead at the place where they would be in the future. I string together different attacks and different sets of movements into one flowing motion. To the normal eye, it looked like a comic character in action where phantoms were drawn to signify movement. My long blade left a trail of water as I cut off the demon's head from the most random angles. Water could flow through a mountain, flow over the mountain, flow under the mountain, or flow around the mountain. It took any path possible, but in the end, it always went through. It could not be stopped. Similarly, my blade found their vulnerable necks no matter what they did. They could cover their necks, move their heads, duck under, or try to block. But no matter what they did, they found themselves headless. Time resumed and my blade cutting through the air made a sound akin to flowing water. In an instant, I chopped off the heads of 13 different demons. Their world spun as their heads fell to the ground. Their last vision was of their own headless bodies with my silhouette standing in the middle. Goodbye and go to hell. The world is better without you. 13 huh? I said and smiled, that's a new record. While I bask in my new accomplishment, Giyu finished off the remaining 7 demons. And thus, the mission was complete. A few hours later, the old mansion finally caught on fire. The flames ranged and consumed the building, burning the remnant shadows of the demons along with the dark history of what happened there. I could feel hot air blow past my cheeks, making it quite uncomfortable, so I took a few steps back and stood beside Giyu. The mission is done, he said with a stone for a face. He neither looked pleased nor mad, he was just blank. As if he was looking at a rock in the middle of a road. I gazed at my reflection on my blade and I had a similar expression. But if one looked closely, they would see small hints of satisfaction in my eyes. I stopped looking and sheathed the sword on my back. It has been a week and a half since I met Giyu Tomioka. The mission we were given took longer than expected since the demons were very adept at hiding. Even I, with my cheat eyes, was having difficulties and we had to track them down for more than 4 days. Giyu said these types of missions were mostly given to Gyomei since his perception of the world was different from ours, so he could easily find demon hideouts. But we did not do badly at all even compared to Gyomei. The demons were spread into many villages and they had fake hideouts to cover their tracks, which was quite tricky. Demons were as smart as humans if not more. So what they had was a proper organization that required to be destroyed from the root. And that took time. But it was a good thing for me because it meant I got to learn more about water breathing and spend time with Giyu, who by the way, was absolutely adorable in character. I wonder if this is what Rengoku felt when he was with me. Giyu was introverted and appeared cold on the outside, but deep down, he was a very kind soul who liked the company of others. He also had deep traumas and a massive inferiority complex, but I mean, who doesn't have a few screws lost in their head in our line of work? The past week has been fruitful. We fought a lot of demons, and even though they were weak, it allowed me to study water breathing by watching Giyu fight. Coupled with my own training and my innate affinity with the breathing style, water breathing quickly became the one I was most proficient with. The third form of water breathing that you executed back there was incredible, Giyu said suddenly, breaking the silence. Well, not really since I was deaf, but you know what I mean. Thank you, I said with a smug smile that I failed to hide. Less than 2 weeks of training and you already became more proficient in it than me, Giyu admitted. To clarify, he was referring to the third form only. Water breathing as a whole, I still had a long way to go before I became as good as him. It was to be expected, I had a giant advantage on certain forms because of my eyes. The third form heavily relied on prediction and perfect flow of movement, so I naturally excelled in it. Other than that, I still had a long way to go until matched his mastery over water breathing. Giyu was possibly the person who had the most mastery over their breathing style. The only other competitor to that title was Shinjiro, who had decades of experience. Just think about it. Almost all of the Hashiras in the anime had something special about them. Mitsuri and Jume had superior bodies, Shinobu was a medical genius, Mitsuri shared a bloodline with Yoriichi, Synopsis had his unique blood, and Tenjin had his shinobi background. But then there was Giyu, who did not have such speciality other than his absolute mastery over his breathing style. But still, he was one of the strongest Hashira. His mastery came from his trauma, pushing him to be the best he could be because he felt the need to fill up for his friend who died to save him. He was so good that he created the 11th form of water breathing, which allowed him to tap into the selfless state without awakening his demon slayer mark. So there was no debate. When it came to mastering their respective breathing styles, Giyu was on top. Therefore, even I would struggle to compete with that level of mastery. But would you lose? Nah, I'd surpass. Let's go. There is a village close by where we can rest, Giyu said, and I nodded. The next day, water breathing, first form, water surface slash. My eyes saw no hesitation in his muscles as he exploded into action. His sword swung at me with the finesse of a painter. His blade left a trail of water in its path and I felt a cold shiver wash over me. He was serious. I moved away quickly and Giyu cut the giant tree behind me. The tree fell to the ground, sending tremors into the earth. My eyes looked at the stump of the tree and noticed its crystal smooth top. That was a show of how clean his cuts were. I swallowed the lump in my throat and I was forced to take a stance. This is a test, CG. Don't fail me saying so, Giyu blurred and rushed at me. You must be wondering how I found myself in such a situation. Well, find out in the next chapter because this one is getting too long. Important image. Chapter 42, I can fix him. CG's POV. Synopsis is still young. He became a Hashira only a few months before you did and he worked years for it. So I can understand why he was skeptical of you at first. If you really get to know him, he is not a bad person at all, Giyu said calmly while sipping tea. We were currently at the house the village had prepared for us. Since we were the ones who saved them from the demons, they were very hospitable and even provided us with a whole house where we could stay. I understand, but I still don't like him. My dislike for him did not have a very concrete reason at all. I just didn't like his character and what he did to Nezuko in the anime. But it was also nothing serious. It's not like I won't talk to him or ignore him if he needs help. The level of dislike was only comparable to my dislike for certain foods, like ginger. What I don't understand though is why you are telling me this, I said and crossed my arms. Synopsis is my friend and I don't want you to have the wrong impression just because of one encounter. He is actually very kind at heart. My face scrunched up in doubt. I don't think you are. What? He asked and blinked once, twice. You don't think Synopsis is my friend? Yeah. Why? Because I know he hates you. What? Giyu exclaimed as if I just told him he was pregnant. He slammed his hand on the tea table and leaned forward. But he didn't say anything to me. Dude, why would he come up to your face and say he hates you? Are you sure? How do you know this? My eyes. I said, pointing at my eyes. I told you before, I am very good at reading people. Plus, it was clearly shown in the anime that Synopsis and Obanai could not tolerate Giyu at all. It was even stated in the data book of the manga. He slumped back down on the floor as a gloomy aura surrounded him. I thought we made progress after we sparred the other day, he murmured in a voice only he could hear, but I saw it. Who cares if he dislikes you? Me and a lot of people like you, I said, trying to console him. It seems I will have to work on it again. Next time, I will make friends with him for sure, he said, and I could see the flash of determination in his eyes. PFTT, it's kind of funny seeing him so secretly eager to make friends. If you want to make more friends, why not start with someone easier, like Connie or Tenjin? I asked. Well, Tenen is a bit older than me and Connie is a girl. I wouldn't know what to say to them, he said and scratched his cheeks. As if you'd know what to say to Synopsis either. I do know what to say to him, he defended himself. What else have you said to him other than correcting him on his technique or breathing forms? I asked. It was a guess. And I was correct. Right. I hope you know that you might only come across as condescending rather than being friendly when you did that. What? I didn't know that, said the clueless water Hashira. I shook my head with a slight smile on my face. At least he was comfortable enough to discuss these things with me. Our age gap was nearly 3 years, but our mental maturity seemed to be of the same age, so we quickly became good friends in the span of a week. I watched as he took the biscuit from the table and nibbled on it while deep in thought. He looked stoic and calm to everyone else, but I was able to read the tiniest hints of his features. So, what are we going to do now that we completed the mission? I asked. He stopped eating his biscuit to contemplate my words before his eyebrows fell, and so did the mood. I could see the change in his emotion. Normally, we should return to our individual missions, but I was thinking of taking a break for a few more days so that you can master water breathing to perfection. Oh, I blinked in surprise. You are truly looking forward to seeing me master water breathing, aren't you? Why is that? I finally asked. Since the time he saw that I had an immense affinity for water breathing and was able to catch the concept almost instantly, he has been very committed to training me and making sure I mastered it. I had an idea on why he was doing so, but I wanted to confirm it. Isn't that obvious? The Demon Slayer Corp is still missing a water Hashira. Someone has to assume the mantle, and I suppose I hope it would be you. Shit, that's exactly what I expected. I could feel a sudden change in the air as Giyu's face took a depressed turn. I could see hints of shame on his visage. But you are the water Hashira. I am not the water Hashira, he declared with absolute seriousness in his voice. Oh god, shouldn't this take place in the 3rd season, which was still around 6 years or something? I could not stress this enough, but I was absolutely horrible in these types of emotional things. I was literally running away from my own traumas and waiting for time to heal me. How the fuck should I help someone else with their trauma? Isn't this where the main character comes in? Tanjiro, please kindly get your ass over here. I should say something, shouldn't I? What do you mean? You are not the water Hashira. I never did pass the final selection, CG, he said and clenched his fist. I am just an imposter who is acting as a substitute until the real water Hashira emerges, said the greatest water breathing user to have ever existed. Yeah, right. Actually, I am also an imposter who acts as CG Shigen until the real one eventually wakes up. Ridiculous. I'm sorry, but please excuse me saying so. Giyu got up and went out of the room. I released a dramatic sigh and flopped on the ground. I looked at the ceiling, searching for God between the molding wood and tiles. Please help me. The next morning, Giyu woke me up like usual and we headed out to train like we usually do. But this time, I had a different plan. I had a lot of time to think about it yesterday and I have decided to fix Giyu and help him resolve whatever issues he had. He was no longer a stranger to me, so I wouldn't let him suffer 6 more years of self-torture just because I didn't like dealing with emotional stuff. I can fix him. We headed to an open space where we could train, but when we reached there, I refused to start to train with him. No, we were in a small clearing with a patch of grass and a small pond on the side. The forest trees surrounded us to create a natural barrier. The morning sun rose on the horizon, its yellow light reflected on the droplets of dew on the leaves, creating magical glitters that were feast to the eyes. The chilly morning air clashed with the earliest warmth of the sun on my skin, creating a pleasant sensation. What do you mean no? I don't want to practice water breathing anymore. I've learned enough. I think I should practice another breathing style instead, I said and crossed my arms. Stop messing around, CG. Giyu narrowed his eyes. We engaged in a staring contest for some time, but my eerie purple eyes easily won the match. He sighed. Is this because of what I said yesterday? Absolutely, I said, brutally honest. What do you want? Context please, so that I can fix whatever is wrong with you, I replied. There is nothing wrong with me, he said and then muttered in a low voice, it's fine, I think you are ready anyways. Huh. Asterisk whoosh, asterisk. Giyu was suddenly in front of me and even though I saw him, I only noticed him when it was nearly too late. He was not fast by any means, Sanemai or Jigoro was leagues above the speed Giyu had just displayed, but he nearly got me. How? It was due to his technique. He had approached me in a perfectly linear path, so my eyes didn't notice that he was getting closer. When something is moving towards you in a perfect linear/straight path, the increase in size is so gradual that your eyes often miss it. Why do cars have red lights on their back? It was so that you wouldn't crash into it when the car suddenly stopped. Because when you drive on a straight road and the car in front of you suddenly stops, it's extremely difficult to see that it stopped or that you were getting closer and closer to crashing it since you were driving towards it in a linear path. The same principle applies here. Giyu ran up to me in a perfectly linear line, so my unprepared eyes nearly missed him. Water breathing, first form, water surface slash. My eyes saw no hesitation in his muscles as he exploded into action. His sword swung at me with the finesse of a painter. His blade left a trail of water in its path and I felt a cold shiver wash over me. He was serious. I moved away quickly and Giyu cut the giant tree behind me. The tree fell to the ground, sending tremors into the earth. My eyes looked at the stump of the tree and noticed its crystal smooth top. That was a show of how clean his cuts were. I swallowed the lump in my throat and I was forced to take a stance. What the actual fuck? If you don't want to train, fine. He was going at his own pace and I was abandoned to pick up the pieces to make sense of what was going on. Why did he suddenly attack? This is a test, CG. Don't fail me saying so. Giyu blurred and rushed at me. Image. Chapter 43, CG vs Giyu. CG's POV. Alright, if you wanna talk, let's talk. Giyu titled his head in confusion, but he quickly discarded what I said. He rushed at me as I did the same. We clashed our swords in the middle and sparks ignited due to steel grinding on steel. We exchanged swings and engaged in a terrifying display of swordsmanship. Our blade whizzed through the air, slicing the atmosphere like butter before they met each other in an immediate halt. I must admit, Giyu was probably the best swordsman I have fought in the Demon Slayer Corps. His technique was refined and each stroke spoke of years upon years of training. But that amounts to nothing in front of me. My eyes released an eerie glow as I perceived the transparent world. My vision changed and I saw things humans were not meant to see. Different levels of X-ray overlapped in my vision. I saw the real world in slow motion. I saw Giyu stripped of his skin so that I could observe his muscles, and I also perceived even deeper and I saw Giyu with only his bones. All these images overlapped in my mind as I chose to focus on whatever I desired, whichever I needed. The truth of the world was laid bare in front of my eyes. Asterisk cling, asterisk. Asterisk cling, asterisk. With each attack exchanged, Giyu realized just how futile it was to fight me in a sword match. I blocked high-level combinations with a simple stroke of my blade. There is always a pattern in how people move. It's ingrained in their body as much as memories were ingrained in their brain. I saw every action Giyu had taken and every movement he trained to take. It was written on his body, on the shape of his muscles, on the size of his tendons. The situation was even worse for Giyu because I had seen him fight on multiple occasions. His fighting style was like a song to me, one I could follow and sing along with. At each passing moment, I was always 5 steps ahead. Water breathing, 7th form. Giyu stopped his futile efforts and prompted to a breathing style. He breathed in quick succession and changed the grip on his sword. Piercing raindrop. Out of all the breathing forms in water breathing, the 7th form was the fastest. Giyu took a single step forward and started stabbing from different places. His arm turned into a snake and blurred as I saw the sharp end of the blade come at me from different directions. Not only was it fast but it was based on the same concept as before. The sword came in a perfectly linear path, so you never knew when the sword got close to you or when it impaled you. Stabs rained on me like raindrops from the sky. The perfect counter was to step back and move out of range. I had the advantage when it came to reach since I had a long sword, so it was the best option. But I did not take a single step back because I knew that was what Giyu wanted me to do. Like I said, 5 steps ahead. I know what he was planning, his body language already told me. So instead, I planted my feet on the ground and held my position. The piercing blade came from different places as if Giyu suddenly grew 12 more arms. It was hypnotizing. Yet I did not try to dodge the incoming attacks that promised to skewer me. I calmly pulled up my sword and everything just stopped. Asterisk ting, asterisk. The tiniest tip of Giyu's sword was blocked perfectly by the sharp edge of my blade. It was an impossible conclusion since both had such a minuscule surface area, but against all odds, they clashed perfectly. I saw Giyu's pupils dilate in shock. This would not work if either of us didn't have the perfect technique. Giyu's perfect linear stab put all the force at the tip, so I was able to stop him in an instant. We held the position for a while as Giyu knew the moment he pulled his sword back, I would take the opening to cut him. So he pushed forward instead. Sparks ignited and Giyu made the slightest change in the angle of his sword. That caused the perfect collision to collapse and the stab came at me again. But I easily stopped it by twisting my sword and blocking it with the flat side. More sparks came to life as the tip of his blade grind against mine. Finally, Giyu leapt back and also used our clash to push himself. We both locked eyes and stayed still for a moment before Giyu nodded in acknowledgement of my skills. But then things changed as I felt the favor of the battle change in a single breath. A single breath that Giyu took. My eyes widen. Water breathing, 11th form. He knew it was useless to engage in useless confrontations, so he chose to move to the climax instantly. There was no build-up, there was no warning. It just happened. A huge gush of water erupted from the ground Giyu was standing on and it spread in every direction. Suddenly, the ground became a raging ocean with violent waves surrounding us. I looked around, amazed and horrified at what this implied. I've never seen this before, but I knew exactly what it was. And then the dreaded words fell. Dead calm. The waves under our feet stopped in an instant, replaced by a still body of water. Everything grew quiet, even my deaf ears realized that. The moment stilled. I looked towards Giyu and my breath stopped. He was not there. I could see him but he was not there. What the fuck? My eyes saw him, my vision did not change. I could see his lungs expand as he took in breaths. I could see his heartbeat as it pumped out blood and I could see how the air around him interacted with his physical body. Yet my mind was convinced that he was not there. It was convinced that he was not real. The best comparison was looking at a television. You could see the movement and everything else, yet your mind knew that it was not real. If you saw a lion on the screen and even if the lion ran to you, you know it was not real, so you won't react. That was exactly what was happening. I saw Giyu but my mind deemed him to be an illusion. Selfless state. It was a state of being that a person can achieve after acquiring the Demon Slayer mark. In this state, the user completely erased their fighting spirit, their will to fight, hatred, anger, bloodlust, malevolence, drive and animosity. Once in this state, the user achieves the ultimate focus and tranquility. Their complete erasure of fighting spirit and emotions turned them into something akin to trees or plants themselves. It was extremely difficult to sense them. It was said to be only achievable after having a Demon Slayer mark, but Giyu was able to achieve the selfless state using the 11th form which he created. It's oversaid the image of Giyu as he came at me with such elegance and tranquility that he did not appear moving at all. It was then that I noticed another aspect of the 11th form. Laminar flow. It was a type of fluid flow where the liquid flowed smoothly without any disturbance and it did not look like it was moving at all. You can observe this phenomenon in water flowing out of a pipe or a tap. They were flowing, but they flowed so smoothly that they looked like they were not moving at all. Giyu's body moved in the same way. My eyes helped me see the movement, but anyone else would not be able to see him through their eyes. It would seem like they were cut by invisible blades. How can one breathing form be so overpowered? I asked myself. It was almost like a domain expansion. Giyu finally reached me and swung his sword at me. My mind and my eyes clashed. My eyes still told the truth, but my mind refused to believe it. But at last, I was able to convince my body to move. I tilted my head to the side and Giyu's sword, which was going to cut my cheek, only made a small scratch. I leapt away in an instant. Blood. I felt blood flowing from my cheek. What a strange feeling. I rarely bled. You never fail to amaze me, CG. Giyu said, and without any hurry in his movement, yet also without wasting any time, he ran towards me again. Usually, my eyes and my mind worked together in perfect sync. But this time, since my mind refused to acknowledge Giyu's presence, there was a lag in the connection. It was not much. It was only a few milliseconds, but those moments of hesitance were vital in a battle like ours. I leapt away again. And then again. And then again. I was running away basically. Giyu was as calm as ever. He was not frustrated, he was not angry, he was not anything. He was void of such things. He was literally like an object or a body of water. On the other hand, I felt myriad of emotions brewing inside me. I was going to lose. But then a sudden thirst to prove myself emerged in my heart. When Giyu was at his calmest, I found myself burning with passion and will. I suppose this was the flame-breathing side of me acting up. As Rengoku would put it, my heart was set ablaze. An idea struck me. I planted my feet on the ground and lowered my center of gravity. I was done running away. My eyes observed Giyu's serene self once more. He was running towards me like a perfect flowing water. I tried my best to predict his movement as far as I could. I based my prediction on his earlier attacks and on the language of his body. Then after the prediction was done, I closed my eyes. My greatest gift was gone. I found myself in a world of darkness and silence. In that darkness, the clash between my eyes and my mind was gone. In that darkness, I moved my body based on the prediction I've made. I attacked the future. Water breathing, first form. I whispered. Water surface slash. This was it. Adapt. I swing my sword. I could not see, but I attacked based on my prediction. Then I felt my sword cut through flesh and I knew I had succeeded. I opened my eyes and red blood filled my vision. Sing. Everything returned to normal. Eyes wide in shock, I looked at Giyu, who also seemed just as surprised as me. But his expression quickly changed as he smiled softly. Then he fell on his back. Did I just kill him? Giyu. I yelled and immediately crouched down near him. I tore open his clothes to look at the cut I made on his chest. Luckily, it was not a deep cut. The slash did not even fully cut through the skin. I released a huge sigh. I acted on my prediction, so it was a little off. I cut him a little deeper than I planned, but he was still safe. I'm so sorry. I got carried away. I apologized immediately. It's okay. I let my guard down thinking you wouldn't be able to fight back. Giyu said. I guess you won, he said and released a satisfied sigh. He looked like a boulder had been lifted off his shoulder. Who the fuck cares? You are bleeding, I said and picked him up from the ground so that I could carry him back to the village. We are never doing that again. Never. Chapter 44, Fixing Giyu. CG's POV. We went back to the house again. After cleaning Giyu's wound and determining that it did not need stitching, I wrapped bandages around his torso. Then I let him rest on the futon while I leaned on the wall and stood in the corner of the room. There was silence in the room until it was broken by Giyu. He started giving me the context I was asking for. I never did pass the final selection, Giyu confessed. There was a boy, his name is Sabito. His family got killed by demons the same as me and we grew up together under the guidance of Urokadake. We quickly became friends and after years of training, we took the final selection together. He paused and his eyes became unfocused, as if he was looking back into the past. I was weak. I was pathetic. I was immediately wounded by the first demon I encountered. On the other hand, Sabito was strong and he had a heart full of justice. He saved me and everyone else who participated in the final selection. In the end, everyone passed except Sabito himself. He died that day. You see, I passed out immediately after my first encounter and Sabito had to protect me throughout the week. In the end, that cost him his life. Although I survived for 7 days in the mountain and therefore passed the exam, I didn't kill a single demon. So could you really say I passed? I did not comment and simply stared at his figure and the vulnerability of his eyes. It should have been me who died that day. Someone like me isn't worthy of being the water Hashira. I don't even deserve to stand next to the likes of you and the other Hashiras. They were heavy words coming from him, someone I considered to be one of the best Hashira. It was sad how much people could hide inside themselves. Giyu truly believed that it would have been better for the world if he was the one who died that day. He felt like he robbed the world of a genius like Sabito who could truly make a difference due to his weakness. He also developed an inferiority complex since that day. The reason why he trained so hard and why he never stopped working was to compensate the world for the lives he had stolen. He tried to fill in the imaginary status of Sabito, who he truly believed would have been a greater man if he was still alive. So you see, CG, I want you to take the mantle of the water Hashira, he said, and a single tear fell from his eye. It made my heart ache that the first emotion I saw took over his face was not joy but raw sadness. I don't deserve it. Bullshit. If what I knew from my past life and what I've seen in the past 2 weeks were anything to go by, there was no one else more deserving of the title. But he didn't believe that. What can I do to conceive him? I racked my brain, trying to remember what Tanjiro said when he experienced the same moment. I clearly remember him saying something to Giyu that ultimately resolved everything. It was just one phase, but that was enough to remind Giyu of what was important and move forward from the past. What was it? Life is all about moving forward, I said suddenly. Giyu looked at me in confusion. What? Shit, that was not it. I will answer your question later, but first, tell me if these lines remind you of anything or give you flashbacks. That was what happened in the anime. Tanjiro said something to Giyu which reminded him of what Sabito said to him in the past. Then poof, things were resolved. The only problem was that I can't remember what Tanjiro said. Pain is a wound, and wounds heal. Nope. How about this? To overcome tribulations is to become stronger. Still no, it's not about the people we lost but the people we save. The deaths of our comrades have meanings because we the living refuse to forget them. The ones who die have no regrets because they entrust their will to the living. Nope, that's from Attack on Titan. What are you doing really, CG? Giyu finally asked. Goddammit. I can't remember the damn line. Forget it, I'll just say what's on my mind. I'm saying that no one gives a shit about your sad story except you, I said. Was that too harsh? Giyu had a visible reaction as he recoiled back. Yeah, I could imagine it was not a reply you would expect after pouring your heart out to someone. But it must be said. Do you know you are the only one who cares? Do you think Sabito would ever regret sacrificing his life for you? How can you be so selfish? Sabito gave his life for you because you are worthy, Tomioka. He entrusted everything to you and it is your duty to live on and pass down their will and memory. You can't just escape their trust and brood about how unworthy you are. You have to live strong for them and cherish the life they sacrificed themselves for. There, I said it. I saw his eyes go wide and his hand came to hold his cheek. I was uncertain whether or not what I said was good or bad. But the silence was too awkward, so I decided to give him some alone time. I'll make dinner, I said and went out of the room. Third POV. Slap. Don't you ever say that you should have died again. The next time you say something like that, we are through. How can you even say something so selfish? The stinging pain from the slap Sabito gave him, Giyu could still remember it so vividly to this day. Your sister knew what she was doing when she sacrificed her life to save you. So don't you ever insult her choice or her memory again by saying something like that. You have to keep living, and pass on the future your sister gave you. That was a conversation he had with Sabito a long time ago and what CG said reminded him of it. How can I forget something like that when it was so important? I'm sorry Sabito. I'm sorry big sister Tsudako. Forgive me, Giyu said with tears falling from his eyes. It took 2 friends to get that idea inside his thick skull. But now he knows. It didn't matter what he felt because this was bigger than himself. Even if he thinks he is unworthy, he must keep on fighting for them and pass down a better future just as they did for him. He owned them that. He wanted to quit being a Hashira just because he was feeling bad about himself? Oh, how truly selfish he was. Now he knew better. Thank you, CG, thank you Sabito, for being my friend. The next morning, their journey together came to an end. Giyu's Kashigi crow flew around in the sky and informed him about his next mission. Giyu Tomioka, you are to hold an investigation in the village of Kamatsuka? Giyu Tomioka, you are to hold an investigation in the village of Kamatsuka? Thank you for what you said yesterday. I couldn't even put it into words how much it meant to me, Giyu said with a bow. It's okay dude, I'm glad I could help. CG said with a flat voice that sounded exactly like someone who had not heard their voice in a long time. There was no emotion in his voice. It was only a cheap imitation of the contraction of the throat box. Giyu smiled softly and gazed at the purple eyes of CG. He didn't like those eyes at first solely because it felt like they could see through everything, but now he gazed upon them fondly. It was one of the only ways to communicate with his friends. He had to make sure those eyes were looking at him before he spoke. Farewell then, until we meet again. Until we meet again, Water Hashira. CG added kindly, and this time, Giyu did not feel any insecurity because he had finally accepted the title. The Water Hashira. That's me, he thought to himself. And then they separated. They were comrades fighting for the same cause, but their respective journeys led them to different paths. Giyu felt lighter than ever as he ran through the forests. Because for the first time in his life, he did not hate himself. And he swung his sword, not for the sake of compensating but with a purpose. All of which were possible only because of a certain purple-haired, purple-eyed, deaf boy. Image. Chapter 45, Time Skip, 1. CG's POV. 1 month passed. My journey continued after I separated from Giyu. It was weird at first, not having a companion in my missions, but Raven made sure I was never lonely. What I did while I was on missions was training water breathing like crazy. I wanted to master it to perfection like Giyu does since it was a style that best suited my fighting style. I mostly used water breathing while I slew demons as well, and with each passing day, I was getting better and better. During this time, I also ran into Rengoku again, much to my absolute joy. He was as high-spirited as the last time I'd seen him, and he was incredibly to see me too. He congratulated me on my quick ascension to the rank of Hashira and expressed his admiration. My eyes saw not a hint of envy or jealousy on his face, even though he clearly wanted to climb the rank as well, which made me like him more. Rengoku himself was making progress in climbing the ranks as he had become Kanao rank. My eyes could see that he was getting stronger than the last time we met as well. We grabbed food and drink and spent the whole day chatting. We shared stories of our travels, and he was especially curious about how I climbed the rank so quickly and how his father was during Hashira meetings. He also has had many adventures that have made him grow in both strength and character. I was glad he had a relatively safe time, but I also warned him about the strength of the lower moons, and although I knew he wouldn't take the advice, I told him to prioritize his safety if he encountered one. He simply laughed and did not promise anything. We stuck together for as long as we could and we trained a lot together. I helped him refine his sword skills and he shared his unwavering motivation with me. I was glad to have met my friend again. In the end, we parted ways and planned to keep in touch using our Kizagai crows to send letters. Other than meeting Rengoku, nothing significant happened during the month. 2 months later, a Hashira meeting was called and every pillar gathered in the headquarters. No one was late or absent. I had never attended a Hashira meeting before, so I was quite excited at the prospect. The meeting basically consists of briefings and statistical reports. Each Hashira shared their experience in their missions and every significant encounter they have had. Some of them were: 1. Shinjiro encountered a lower moon but it managed to escape before he could slay it. 2. Connie reported about a demon that had a rather troublesome blood demon art, spreading diseases. She brought up the importance of medicine and vaccines in the Demon Salure Corp and asked Yubayashiki to give her resources to improve the medical teams of the Flower Mansion. 3. Jume brought up an issue of the increasing groups of demons. With the emergence of 4 Hashiras, Connie, Giyu, Sanomai, and me, the demons were being hunted more than ever and they resorted to living more in groups compared to the past years. He said this could be dangerous for the lower rank demon slayers, so he proposed the idea of more group missions instead of individual missions for their safety. Other than these 3, the rest of the Hashiras did not have important things to share. Then we went over the statistics. There were a total of 21 deaths in the Demon Slayer Corps, which was a massive loss for just 3 months. There had been an increase in the death rates and the cause could be directly traced back to what Jume had said. There was also a report on all of the demons slayed by the Hashiras and the amount of missions completed. Suffice it to say, I was the one with the most missions completed while Sanomai was the one with the most kill count. The moment that was revealed, I immediately felt a spark of rivalry with Sanomai. We both had the advantage. He had his special blood which can attract demons and I had my eyes which allowed me to easily complete missions by locating demons. Then Yubayashiki gave us a briefing on the activities of the demon. He showed us a map with all of the demon sightings and we traced their movement. It was there that each of the Hashira was assigned territories which we needed to keep an eye on. Plus, any lower-ranked demon slayers who need assistance in that area will call upon us for help. I was assigned the eastern regions as they had the most villages. Many other minor things were also discussed in the meeting and the whole thing took nearly a day. 1 month later, I returned to the Flower Mansion for this month's break. Shinobu was in the mansion much to my delight, and funnily enough, she was still not a demon slayer yet as she missed the latest final selection. "How have you been, Shivi?" I asked as her face lit up upon seeing me. "I've been well," she said with a barely restrained voice. She immediately grabbed my hand after that and pulled me inside. "Why did you not visit again sooner? Come on, I have many things to show you," she said excitedly. Apparently, she had been making great progress in her research of demon poison. She said it was all due to my advice that she even thought of developing it. Then there was also her sword, which she had modified by chipping off almost the entire body of the edges, leaving only the sharp tip. She immediately asked me for a spar which I entertained. She asked me my opinion on her newly created fighting style which heavily relied on stabbing, and she shared her vision with me. She would have a personalized sword that would allow her to apply poison to her blade. She had lots of ideas. Just coating the sword with poison would not work as that would be almost useless and would chase away the demons with the smell of wisteria. So she had to be creative in its design. A sword whose tip acted as a syringe, a sword with storage for poison at the tip, and a sword that had a small pipe running along the body were some of the ideas she had. I also proposed some ideas like using a rapier, hoping to give her some inspiration. So for the next 2 days, we spent time together on such matters. We would also go out at night, just the two of us, under the moon. It would have been romantic if not for our reason for going out. To haunt and experiment on demons. To test her poison, we haunted demons together and used them as lab rats. I spent all 4 days of my break doing such things before I had to leave again. 2 months later, I spent this time mastering my breathing styles. I felt like I had perfected water breathing, so I began trying to learn the 11th form of water breathing. For a whole 2 months, there was absolutely no progress in learning the 11th form, but I did not give up. I never expected learning such an overpowered skill to be easy anyway. I could perfectly replicate the laminar flow and the breathing patterns, but what I struggled with was achieving the selfless state. It was almost impossible to bear no hatred, animosity, or hostility when fighting against demons. It was clear that I would need to face some traumas and fix myself mentally to learn the form, but I believe I could find a loophole with the help of my eyes. There had to be some tricks other than having to stop myself from hating the demons. Because honestly, I don't think I will ever not hate them. I visited Rengoku and Giyu during this time to have bro moments, but other than that, it was filled with missions, training my breathing styles and trying to learn the 11th form of water breathing. In no time, a total of 6 months have passed. Image. Chapter 46, Time Skip, 2. CG's POV. 1 month later. Come on, literally what else can you do? I asked as I followed behind the wind Hashira as he angrily walked along the dirt road. Anything other than what you want me to do, he seethed by himself as he took huge, forceful steps which were a contrast to all the elegant and probably soundless steps that other Hashiras usually take. Why wouldn't you just teach me? You have no excuse, lil brother. How about this? It's because you're not worthy, alright, how about that? He said, and don't call me lil bro. Trust me, that doesn't sound as cool as it sounds in your head. You lost to me, remember? I said, and I could see him visibly vibrate as he marched forward, faster. Speaking of which, don't you remember the bet we made before our fight? The loser does whatever the winner says, I said, and he paused. Then turned towards me. Don't fucking try to gaslight me, you little twerp. I sighed and whispered to myself, if you're already this dumb, why aren't you just dumb all the way? I fucking heard that. Arga hit ta. He stumped his feet 3 times before turning back and walking towards our destination again with quick steps. He couldn't do anything. Because right now, under the order of Lord Yubayashiki, we were companions on the same mission. I did not know if it was luck or if it was the meticulous plan of some higher being, but I was paired with Sanemai just when I needed. I had gotten extremely good at using all of the other breathing styles I knew except wind breathing, so I wanted to improve on that. I had copied wind breathing from Sanemai during our fight, but those were only 2 forms, the first form and the 4th form, along with the conceptual pattern of wind breathing and constant breathing. But there were still more than half that I needed to learn. It has been nearly a day since we met up, but I still could not convince him to teach me wind breathing. We were on a mission, so I didn't expect him to slow down just to teach me, but he could talk about the concept and show me the different forms now and then, and it would be enough for me. Then we would use the demons we encountered as training dummies and I would learn the breathing style in no time. At least that's how I learned from Giyu. But no, Sanemai refused to even entertain the idea. I would convince him eventually though. We continued our journey to the first destination of our mission and we reached it the next morning, around 3 hours away from sunrise. Our destination this whole time was the location of groups of demons found by one of the lower ranks. We cleared the hideout of demons during the 3 hours before sunrise, but unfortunately, we were unable to slay all of them as some successfully escaped us. After that, we ate and rested the entire morning before we continued our journey at late noon. The mission we were assigned was a long-lasting one. It was basically to clear all of the demon hideouts that had been located so far, both by the scouts and by the lower ranks. The mission was assigned to us because we were both known for our ability to complete missions quickly, and this particular mission needed to be completed as quickly as possible to avoid more deaths. Also, it was because Sanemai knew wind breathing, which was incredible against groups of demons, and so did I. At least I was decent in wind breathing. The mission was expected to last for a few weeks at least, if not a month. You have to teach me wind breathing. It is vital for our mission and it will allow us to slay all of the demons next time. This is no time to feed your ego. If I learn it, it will only be the benefit of the Demon Slayer Corps as a whole. I said, still following behind him because he refused to walk side by side with me. I think he considered walking side by side to be a show of kinship and equality. You know, we are walk together, shoulder to shoulder kind of thing. So far, he was only letting me walk behind him. You are deaf, so you never heard your own voice, but let me tell you, your voice is annoying as hell. So stop talking before you piss me off. I saw him say by looking at the contraction of his throat. Well, he looks pretty pissed off already. So I refused to stop. Come on, put away your pride and I will put away mine, I said and paused a short while before saying again, please, teach me. And he walked off. Honestly, how troublesome. Just to let you know, I can also teach you a lot about swordsmanship because currently, your skills are shit, I said. His skills were shittier than even the weakest Hashira because most of his demon-slaying life, he used different means to slay demons. I think I've read somewhere that Sanemai was slaying demons since before he even knew about the Nichiren blades of the Demon Slayer Corps. He would use a variety of weapons and traps to slay them. I don't need to learn anything from you, was his cold reply. In the end, I never was able to convince Sanemai to teach me, at least that's what he wanted me to think to save his own stupid pride. But in reality, I convinced him. He never verbally accepted, but that same night, he lured demons towards us using his blood and he slew every demon that appeared with breathing forms, regardless of how weak they were. Normally, it would only take a simple slash to kill them, but he used his breathing forms to slay them. And not just one form either, but multiple forms of the wind breathing. He never accepted it, but I could see that he was giving me the chance to copy him. He knew I could copy him since I used the forms I knew to clear the first hideout last time. So in the end, Sanemai became my teacher without ever becoming my teacher. Honestly, what a fucking tsundere. Slash 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 slash. 1 month later. A month was more than enough for me to fully learn wind breathing. There were lots of demons to practice on and I used mostly wind breathing during our mission. I think I managed to form a unique bond with Sanemai during this time. Oh fucking finally, the mission finally ends. That means no more sassy weird-eyed boy following me around like a shadow. Maybe not. Synopsis cheered as we walked away from the demon hideout. It was the last of our mission. It took us a month since more locations were discovered during the mission, but we finally destroyed every known hideout. I'll miss you too, buddy. Deaf boy, that's not what I said, he said while glaring at me. We were walking side by side. You may already notice, but he was a lot tamer than a month ago. Our relationship grew in a weird way I never expected. I didn't know if we could be called friends or not, but I think he loves me now. Don't make me kill you right at the end, he said, his glare intensified. Oops, but not really. I meant to say that out loud. Well, maybe he was yet to fall in love with me, but at least he was tolerating me now. I think that's the most you could get from a tsundere like Synopsis. Let's go get some spicy ramen to celebrate, I said, knowing full well Synopsis could not do spice at all. He may be hot-headed, but he had weakness to hot food. I'm not hungry, he said, refusing to admit that he couldn't do spicy food. You mean, you can't eat spicy food? That's not what I said. How do you keep mishearing what I said when you are deaf? He yelled. Oh, don't worry. Then let's go get red bean mochi and other sweet foods. I don't like it, but you can eat all of them like a little girl, I said. Interesting fact, Synopsis has a sweet tooth and his favorite food was red bean mochi. He also liked a hage, rice ball with red bean paste, and other sweet food. But such was the pride of the wind Hashiras that just because I compared liking sweet food to being a little girl, he would never eat them in my presence. Fine, let's go get spicy ramen, he said, and walked forward to lead the way, trying to act enthusiastic and pretend that he was not weak against spice. I'm cruel, aren't I? Well, I never claimed to be perfect. Seeing him force eating spicy food was such an entertaining sight that I couldn't miss it in this world with limited entertainment. To be nice, I will grab a few red bean paste rice balls for him. In a blink of an eye, 2 months passed. Awesome image. Chapter 47, Time Skip, 3. Author, double chapter. / CG's POV. 1 month later. I went to the Flower Mansion to take a break and to have a medical checkup. While going on missions, I never sustained an injury other than occasional overexertion or muscle fatigue, so this medical checkup was for my general health than anything. Other than my high blood pressure, there was nothing wrong with my health. Though Connie told me to get more sleep as I was going through puberty. Speaking of puberty, it was finally in full force, and what can I say except, it was weird as fuck. The most noteworthy change in my body was regarding my dick. Yes, you heard that right, my dick. What was noteworthy exactly, you ask? Well, my dick was ginormous, I think. At least it was the biggest it had ever been in both of my lives. I thought it wouldn't be that big, maybe even smaller than in my past life, because Japanese, or Asians in general, were not known to have huge cocks. At least that's what I've heard. But I was genuinely surprised. I wouldn't share the exact measurement because that's only for my future wife to know, but know that your boy was blessed in this regard. I personally thought it was really cool. Another thing worth mentioning was my explosion in height. I was 5 feet 5 inches feet less than a year ago, but today, I stood proudly at 5 feet 9 inches feet. I was already taller than most people here. My eyes allowed me to follow the changes in my body in detail, so although I couldn't hear it, my voice got deeper along with the growth of my larynx. But much to my dismay, I have been having no luck in growing my hair. I couldn't grow a mustache for the life of me, so my dream of having a small beard like a goatee seemed to be moving further and further away. Yet I was only close to 15, so I still had hope. My growth also came with an increase in strength. With the right diet and careful/scientific exercise with the help of my eyes, I was growing the perfect muscles. And I think that's where the positive ends. Puberty was a first for me, even including my past life, but everything went well. It was messy in many regards, wet dreams are a pain, hormone imbalance was a bitch, and acne made me want to cut my face. But all in all, I was managing nicely. I just couldn't wait to grow my hair. I spent nearly a week in the Flower Mansion, and this time, Shinobu was sadly not around most of the time. I just spent the days helping Connie and constantly refusing her proposal for a spar and teaching me flower breathing. Please Connie, I respect you. / 1 month later. I finally mastered wind breathing as much as I could. Like I said before, wind breathing was similar to thunder breathing in the sense that they were opposite to my fighting style, so mastering it took a while. During this month, I finally had the privilege of visiting the Swordsmith village. I was blindfolded and guided, not carried, by a female scout from the Demon Slayer Corp. For the record, the blindfold did absolutely nothing as I used my eyes to see through it. Therefore, I knew exactly where the Swordsmith village was located. Traveling took a day through terrible terrains and places not accessible to normal humans, but in the end, we reached the place without a problem. The Swordsmith village was located between tall mountains which were all somehow surrounded by wisteria trees, but in a way that did not make it obvious. There were also heavy guards starting from about 10 kilometers away from the village. It was located near a lake from which the villagers fish and access water. When I came into the village, I immediately visited my old man Hashiras, and he was extremely glad to see me. He immediately asked me if I had come to retrieve the katana I gave him, but I laughed and told him no. Hashiras repaired any flaws in my otaki and praised me for my ability to maintain the sword. He welcomed me as a guest, and we finally had time to have proper conversations during this time. At one point, I brought up my idea of having a bow and arrow and we went on a long discussion about it. How would a bow and arrow help me? At first, it might seem like a completely ridiculous proposal since demons required beheading to kill them fully. But with the poison Shinobu was developing, it would be more than possible to kill a demon with an arrow. But still, the cons might outweigh the pros. The only thing I knew was I definitely could kill weaker demons from kilometers away without having to run to them one after another. It can also be helpful when dealing with demons who have the ability to escape by teleporting a certain distance, like Gyako Upper Moon 5. Also, there were times when I failed to reach demons before they killed civilians. In those times, I wish I could have some form of projectile attack. I spent a total of 3 days in the Swordsmith village. I used the time to rest and enjoy the hot springs. I also picked up some smithing skills with my absolutely broken eyes. My eyes were helpful in making swords as well and I could see the best metals and also find out parts that contain impurities and adjust wrong alignments. All in all, my visit to the Swordsmith village was productive and the time was well spent. 2 months later, a Hashira meeting was called again and everyone else attended like usual except for Shinjiro. The reasons for his absence were unknown but the other Hashiras were clearly upset. But the meeting commenced like usual. It started with a statistical report where it was said that we lost a total of only 12 members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Yubayashiki thanked us and said it was all of our hard work that his children were safe. I and the others could not help but feel a sense of pride. We had much to improve upon but it was great knowing that we were making progress. They also released the performance of the Hashiras again with me being the one with the most completed missions and Jume having the most kill counts this time. Suffice it to say, Sanemai was pissed that he was not on top. There was also a sharing among the Hashiras again about their encounters as they reported things that they thought were important. I usually remained silent during this time because I still lacked the insight they had. Killing demons and completing missions were what I was good at. Strategic thinking and proposing ideas to improve the organization as a whole were things I was really not good at. You can't be good at everything I guess. One interesting thing discussed during the meeting was the end of demon tribes. Yeah, the year when demons got together into different groups as a new survival strategy to counter the emergence of multiple Hashiras was called the Year of Demonic Tribes. And it has finally come to an end. The demons realized that working together was not helping them, instead, it allowed us to slay them easier as they gathered in one place. So they stopped. The sighting of demons in groups plummeted and we decided to allow more individual missions to the lower ranks again. Also, another lower moon had fallen at the might of Jume, the stone Hashira. Yubayashiki expressed his gratitude to the strongest demon slayer. With all of those and some more, the meeting came to an end. 4 months have passed. Image. Chapter 48, Time Skip. 4. CG's POV. 2 months passed. I have deemed it to be impossible for me to learn the 11th form of water breathing. I did everything correctly, I followed the right breathing pattern, and I could perfectly imitate Giyu's movement. But what I could not copy was his selfless state. I did not know how he did it, but it was impossible for me to completely erase my fighting spirit. There had to be at least something in you while fighting. It could be hate, it could be excitement, hostility, fear, or any other emotions. It was impossible to not feel anything, at least that's what I think. If you did not feel anything, what was even the point of fighting altogether? What makes you move against the enemy? How could you harm something without at least feeling anything? It was psychopathic behavior. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that Giyu was able to fight even after erasing all his fighting spirit due to his immense sense of duty. It was a sense of duty that came from his traumas. It made him move and get the job done even when he was not feeling anything, like a robot that was programmed to complete a task no matter what. Dead calm. That was the name of the form. I guess I had to accept that I was not the only one who was incredibly special. Giyu had something in him that I could not replicate even with my eyes and all my genius. Hopefully, though, I will be able to achieve the selfless state normally if I ever awaken my Demon Slayer mark. Just for the record, I had absolutely no intention of ever awakening my Demon Slayer mark. The reason was pretty obvious, I didn't want to die at the young age of 25. So that meant I had to be significantly stronger than the rest. I would have no unreasonable power-up in the middle of the fight so I always had to be superior to my enemies. The training continued. My swordsmanship was impeccable but there were always new ways to improve. I changed my training style a bit and focused on one breathing style for a week, and then I focused on another in the second week and so on. Demons were never ending. You truly realized that when you were slaughtering them every single day, it really did not matter how much we kill, they would always multiply. To stop this war, we need to kill the demons from the root which was Musen Kibutsuji. Then again, that seemed even more impossible. So I trained and trained and trained and trained. I got stronger and stronger and stronger. My techniques got more and more refined, and my skills increased day by day. My experience stacked up to build me up as a warrior. Each error and mistake shaped me to become a killing machine as pain molded me into the bane of demons. Not only that, I was also naturally growing stronger as I aged. I was certain that I was easily the second strongest Hashira by now, only below Jume because he was just built differently. As I grew taller, I stopped strapping my sword on my back. Instead, I constantly carried my sword in one hand. This helped me draw my blade faster and also provided me with a non-lethal weapon as I used my sheathed sword as a blunt weapon. I gained the habit after I had to carry supplies on my back. Then I realized it was much better when I was constantly carrying my sword, sheathed or not, instead of strapping then on my back. So most of the time, you would see me carrying a long-ass sword in one hand, sometimes using it as a cane as I hunt down demons. /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////one month passed. I spent the time traveling across Japan, constantly keeping an eye out for that one home in the forest where Tanjiro lived, but still, no success. I visited Rengoku in his home again and I spent some time there. We trained together and I also learned that Shinjiro's depression was getting worse. He was officially a bum, a shameful shell of his former glory. All he cared about these days were complaining and drinking wine, just like how he was portrayed in the anime. He barely completed missions and refused to attend Hashira meetings. It was honestly a sad sight to see. I was considering asking him for a spar or at least asking for teachings to improve my flame breathing, but as he was now, it was not possible. He refused to even teach his own son, telling him that he would never be as good as people like me no matter how hard Rengoku trained. I stayed with Rengoku for a few days. We trained together and cooked giant meals which we enjoyed after each training session. I also got to meet his cute little brother who thought I was literally the coolest guy ever. Ha ha ha, it was nice to have a young admirer. They were so innocent. It made me want to be better to not disappoint them. After leaving, I visited Giyu and then Sanomai. I ended up helping them in their missions as well and asking both of them to spar with me. Of course, we only used their respective breathing styles while sparring and in the end, I won both sparring sessions. Rather easily. I spent one whole month doing such things. One month later. Jume Heimjima, please take me under your wings. I said and did a 90-degree bow to probably the only human stronger than me. I've learned flame breathing, thunder breathing, water breathing, and wind breathing. Now it was finally time to learn the last breathing out of the 5 major breathing styles, which was also known as the strongest breathing style. If I was Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones, this would be the final stone. I'll be honored, CG. Jume replied as a small stream of tears fell from his eyes. So, that's it? I asked myself. It was easier than I thought. I was expecting some challenge like Sanomai, but I didn't know Jume was chill like that. Nevertheless, I smiled and thanked him. I had been delaying learning stone breathing because I wanted to grow physically first so that I could complete the training Jume would give me. But now I have grown enough. Standing at the height of 5 feet 10 inches feet, my body was filled with compact muscles that made sure that I was no longer inferior to any of the Hashiras in terms of strength. Take care of me, I said with a nod. Same to you, Jume replied. And so, my training in stone breathing began as I went under the wings of Jume Heimjima. /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// and find a way through them, whether it be flowing over them, around them, or under them. But then stone breathing's like, nah. Stone breathing taught me to stay true to myself and never falter. I was not meant to change or adapt to my enemies. Instead, I should crush them all with unyielding force. Be an unstoppable force and an immovable object. I could not comprehend for the life of me how these two breathing styles even derived from the same breathing. Stone breathing emphasized strength and endurance. But unlike thunder breathing or wind breathing, it did not focus on bursts of strength. Instead, it focused on continuous application of strength. It also emphasized on momentum, that is, utilizing the momentum of each strike so that as the battle went on, I would become stronger and last in a drawn-out battle. I should be like a boulder rolling down a mountain, gaining more force the longer I went on. The training started much like how it started for Tanjiro. I had to push a giant boulder, even bigger than Tanjiro's, and learn to stay under a weight waterfall. The waterfall training was meant to build my endurance and also sharpen my persistence, which was what stone breathing was all about. The boulder pushing training was meant to teach me the concept of constant application of force. Basically, I did not have to have the burst of strength to move the boulder. If I stayed persistent and applied force on the boulder, over time that would build up and naturally move the boulder. While pushing the boulder, I learned that it's not about using a single burst of energy or power, but maintaining a steady and continuous exertion of force. This was akin to the idea of endurance and persistence. Constantly applying pressure, rather than stopping and starting, ensures steady progress. This part of the training was the most tricky one, and it took me nearly a month to complete them. But after that was done, the rest of the training was a breeze. There were no forms I could copy from stone breathing as it required the use of weapons other than a sword. But Giyu took his time teaching me about the basic concept of stone breathing and also showed me examples of the forms that I could copy. He even referred to a stone Hashira in the past who used a giant claymore to help me. In the end, other than the constant breathing of stone breathing, I had to recreate the forms to fit me. But with all my mastery over breathing styles as a whole, I was able to create forms for stone breathing pretty easily. After 2 months, I learned everything I could from Giyu. Stone breathing proved to be the hardest breathing style I'd ever learn. I think this one would take me years to fully master. But for now, I could say that I had learned all of the 5 major breathing styles. The idea of beating Muzan Kibutsuji still felt as impossible as ever. I thought it'd be a little different after I learned all the breathing styles, but nope. Well, like all the past MCs before me had said, more power. 6 months passed. Ihoini. Chapter 49, Time Skip, 5. CG's POV. You know, I had been focusing on demons too much. I deemed them to be the vilest creatures in the world, the source of all evil. In the process, I had forgotten that humans could be just as evil if not more than demons. After all, every demon was once a human. So would it not be more correct to say that humans were the source of evil? I was in a town located in the east. It was the place where people from rural villages came to trade. It was the boiling point of the economy in this region. I watched as a little girl was dragged on a leash like a dog by a bald man. Her eyes were devoid of life. There was no sparkle of youth in her eyes although she was but a child. Her hair was messy and unkempt, her body was small and malnutrition. She looked like she was 7 even though my eyes told me she was 11 years old. My eyes saw everything. I saw all of the abuse the little child had endured till now. There were fractured bones that never fully healed and bruises that were still purple. Fuck, I did not want to describe it anymore. I ran up to the man. Hey, what do you think you are doing to the little girl? I asked, nicely. Not because of a lack of anger but due to an overwhelming amount of it. Maybe it was something in my eyes that forced the truth out of him, or maybe it was because the drunk man couldn't care less. But the man said, she's my slave, her parents sold her. A slave, huh? At this age, there was still the practice of slaves in the rural areas. She's not reacting to anything anymore, you see, he said and his hand went across the child's face with a loud smack. The girl's head turned and her lips immediately started bleeding. But she did not even release the tiniest scream of pain. She's broken. I am going to sell her to the prostitution house. I did not move a single muscle and simply stared at the little girl. When he mentioned prostitution, I used my x-ray on the little girl again. The absence of her hymen made my already cold blood colder. I knelt down in front of the little girl. I stared at her light purple eyes which were eerily similar to mine. My eyes failed to read her. I could even read Giyu's stoic face so that meant the girl was truly not feeling anything anymore. Like the guy said, she was broken. I untied the leash on her body and pushed her aside. Hey, what do you think you're doing? And finally, something snaps. My sheathed sword found its way to the man's jaw, disorienting him and dropping him to the ground. And then I started beating him in the most painful way possible. For the first time in my life, my eyes searched for the most painful ways I could harm a human. It was something I often did with demons but never on a human. I searched for soft tissues, places where there were most nerves. I started destroying his body. I hit his thighs, I hit the soleace of his foot, I crushed his testicles and beat at every possible place where he wouldn't pass out or die. The people around quickly formed a crowd around us as people who never bat an eye seeing an abused child started telling me to stop. But no one walked forward to stop me. I think it's something about my eyes that made them freeze whenever they tried to approach. I looked at the humans around me as I would demons because, at that moment, I couldn't tell the difference. Blood splattered, pieces of flesh flew off and bones cracked and protruded out of the skin. Yet the man was still conscious because I forced him to be. He squealed like a pig, incoherent because I had long since broken his jaw. I tortured him for as long as I could before I stopped. There was no longer a way I could torture him. If I continued, he would either no longer feel it or it would only free the man of his pain by killing him. I turned my head to look at the small girl who watched everything happen. I searched for an emotion, at least a small satisfaction or fear on her face but I found none. She was simply void. Then I looked around me. By now there were many people crowing around me, whispering to themselves. Were these really the people we were protecting against the demon? I don't want to protect them. When I promised to take the title of Hashira and promised to protect the weak from demons, I did not mean to protect these people. I finally rest my eyes on the man groveling on the ground again and I drew my blade. I sheathed my blade again. I took money from my pocket and threw most of it at his disfigured form. Get well soon, I said. Because I'm going to come again. Death was too good for him. I grabbed the child by her hand and dragged her away from the town. /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// dropped every mission I had and only focused on her. I cleaned her body, I tended to her wounds from the medical knowledge I'd learned from Shinobu, and I fed her with all the foods she could eat. But even after days passed, the girl still remained broken. She was like a soulless flesh in the form of a girl. It would take time for her to heal from all that she'd been through. She also never did things without a command. She was molded to act like a slave. Even if she was starving, she wouldn't eat until I said so. The same goes for sleeping, talking, going to the toilet, etc. Unless I told her to, she wouldn't do anything. She couldn't decide anything for herself. I also learned many things about the girl in the past few days. Like for example, her name was Kanao and her parents sold her when she was only 4 years old. I made her retell everything that had happened to her so far. Luckily, she was not raped or sexually sold like I initially thought. Her hymen probably broke during many of the beatings she had to endure. After caring for her for a few weeks and helping her in any way I could, I brought her to the Flower Mansion, the place she rightfully belonged. If you didn't know, she was Kanao, the student under Shinobu which we saw in the anime of Demon Slayer. She was also the love interest of the main character Tanjiro. She was meant to be found by Connie, but it seemed I encountered her first. I brought her to the Flower Mansion and entrusted her into the hands of the Coco sisters. I was by no means someone who could take care of a child. I was constantly traveling and had no home, but the flower mansion always had either of the sisters due to their job, so they would be better at taking care of a child. So I decided to follow the canon and let her be raised by the Coco sisters. It was for her own good. But when I was about to leave her, she ran up to me and grabbed my haori, just like she had done during the weeks I had been taking care of her. I looked at her and I saw that she did not want me to leave. It was the first emotion I saw on her face, the first thought I read off her, and it completely melted me. So in the end, I stayed with her in the flower mansion for 2 months. I stayed with her until she was comfortable amongst the Coco sisters. I was also able to teach her many things from then on. The progress was slow, but the girl was healing, both in mind, spirit, and body. Her small stature was slowly filled with healthy fats and muscle, and after 2 months, she looked like a normal child. But after 2 months passed, I had to leave again. But this time, she had gotten along with the sisters and she felt safe with them. So I bid her farewell. And also, I ended up giving her my last name when we were creating documents for her. So she was Kanao Shigen. She ended up being my little sister, I guess. Consider it a small change. In the canon, Connie gave her the name Kanao Coco as the girl had no name. // 4 months later. The next 4 months were filled with constant training as I increased my mastery over every single breathing style. Not only that, but I also started creating new forms of breathing by mixing the breathing styles. Although some breathing styles could not be mixed due to their polar opposite nature, I was successful in most of them. Technically, I was creating a new breathing style by combining them, but I did not count it as such. I would develop my own breathing style later on. I spent the months training, visiting the flower mansion and doing missions. A Hashira meeting was also called again, and other than the fact that I was assigned a new territory, nothing significant happened. In the blink of an eye, time passed. And it had been a total of 2 years since I became a Hashira. Today, I turned 16 years old. At 16, I stood at 6 feet tall with a new air of maturity. 2 years was a long time and I had grown in both body and character. Also, after developing new breathing forms which were a mix of 2 breathing styles, I was now the strongest among the Hashiras. It was not official yet, but if my eyes were to be truthful, I was indeed the strongest. I think I grew well during these past 2 years. Image. Chapter 50, 16th birthday. 3rd POV. The flower mansion. I spy with my little eyes, something dirty and in the air. CG said to the little girl sitting between his legs. A small smile tugged on his face as the little girl turned her head in search of what CG just described. It did not take long for the girl's moving head to stop in one direction and she pointed at something flying in the air. It was a fly in the distance. That is correct, CG said and rewarded the little girl by patting her head. Kanao melted in his touch and praise, her eyes sparkled with joy even though she did not know how to smile. They were sitting on the veranda of the flower mansion while gazing at the garden outside. The place had quickly become their favorite place to hang out. Now, next one. CG hummed and then looked around at the garden. Oh, you need to do this one quickly. I spy with my little eye, something with 6 legs. Kanao's purple eyes glazed over in focus before she quickly spotted something that fit the description. She pointed towards it again. It was the ant on a falling leaf. Correct again. Amazing, you have such good eyes, Kanao. He praised her and she bit her tongue in joy. She wanted to smile, but years of being hit for smiling made her body incapable. Connie Coco watched all of this from a distance. She did not even realize that she had been watching for nearly an hour now. At first, it was the insane display of superior eyesight that attracted her attention. But it was the wholesome moment of bonding between CG and Kanao that made her stay. They were so cute together. It had been 6 months since CG had come to their doorstep and asked if they could take care of the little girl, explaining to them how he met her and how she needed help. He said he was not qualified to take care of her and that they would be better for the job of raising her. But if what she was seeing was anything to go by, she'd say he was the perfect fit for the role. They looked like father and daughter, especially with Thea's similar eye color and Thea's incredible eyesight. He'd make a great father. Connie thought to herself with a fond smile. CG Shigen, he was just a child when she first met him. But in only 2 years, the boy had become a handsome young man, grown and reliable. Was it so common for boys to change this much after going through puberty? He was only a few months older than her younger sister, but he was already someone she could depend on. She frequently asked for his help whenever she was facing troubles in her mission. Not only her but the other Hashiras as well. CG was the Hashira with the quickest mission succession rate. For some reason, he preferred roaming around Japan instead of staying in his territory, so he was the main ally the other Hashiras would call using Their Kizagai Crows if they ever needed an extra hand in Their mission. In just a few years that he had been in the Demon Slayer Corps, he had become the single most important factor in the organization. Even more so than Jume, since it was not often that they needed such firepower. It was his incredible efficiency that set him apart. There was the Water Hashira, the Wind Hashira, the Stone Hashira, the Flame Hashira, etc. But since CG had no singular breathing style, he was often simply referred to as Hashira no Hashira, or the Pillar of Pillars. Sis, you are staring again. A voice suddenly snapped Connie out of her musing. She closed her eyes and her lips tugged a teasing smile before she turned back to look at Shinobu. Was I? I didn't realize. Seeing them both together is just too sweet, she said. That's the same excuse you used last time. You stare at him even when he is alone. Shinobu said. You know, you constantly tease me about how I am in love with CG, but aren't you actually the one who's in love with him? Shinobu said, quirking a grin. Yufufufu, trying to tease me? That won't work. Connie said and flicked her little sister on the forehead. Why are you here, Shinobu? Is the preparation finished? She asked. Shinbu rubbed her forehead and said, yes. We just need to do the finishing touches and you need to distract him for a bit before leading him to the hall. Won't be hard considering how he is naturally distracted by you. Shinobu pouted and looked at her chest, which was still just a budding flower, before looking at her sister's chest, which had already blossomed. Oh, CG had a preference, all right. And he made it painfully obvious for everyone since his eyes were his everything. I'll do my best. Connie said, and they both walked towards CG. Okay Kanao, enough playing with Big Brother, it's time to study. Shinobu called out. Kanao looked up to ask for confirmation, and after CG gave a nod, she robotically stood up and ran to Shinobu. There was no whining or protest that you'd often find in a girl her age. Her past made it so that she followed orders naturally. Shinobu grabbed Kanao by the hand and they both walked away from the veranda, leaving only CG and Connie together. She walked towards CG and she sat down beside him. She was a little too close, much to his fluster and her amusement. What brings you here, Lady Connie? Nothing in particular, just wanted to enjoy the view in your company. Also, I told you not to call me lady, she said. I feel like it creates an invisible wall between us. We are close enough to drop the formality, are we not? Or was that just on my part? She slightly pushed her small shoulder on his bigger frame. Of course Connie. I feel close to you as well, he said, his face stone cold. He must believe that his face didn't give away anything. But after 2 years of knowing him, Connie could read him well. Although his face was stoic, his ears hidden between strands of purple hair were turning red at the tip when he spoke. That's his way of blushing. She'd never told him about it because it was adorable when he thought he didn't give away his true emotions. Anyways, what do you think about the new flowers I planted in the garden? The camellias? They are beautiful. Oh, you know about them. A little. The camellia blooms in early spring and winter. They are said to be a symbol of elegance and love. CG said the few things he knew, maybe hoping it would impress the Oni-san. Which he did. Wow, I didn't expect that. Usually, boys are absolutely clueless when it comes to flowers. Well, I am a self-proclaimed admirer of beauty, so I know a lot about beautiful things, which most flowers are. Really? Then do you know about those? Connie asked and pointed towards a flower bead beside the pond. Peony, she corrected him in her mind. Another thing she found absolutely adorable was how he was unable to pronounce certain things, most of which were words that rely on the tone to convey the meaning. Even with his eyes, his deafness still made him disabled in some ways. You know them? They are very rare and I was lucky enough to get them from this one village during my mission last year. The two of them sat together and chatted about the flowers in the garden for a few minutes. Connie was glad to find someone knowledgeable about flowers. Although Shinobu liked flowers, she was more interested in butterflies. Oh, I nearly forgot. I have something to show you. Connie said, her main objective nearly slipped her mind during the conversation. CG stood up first and offered his hand. She stared for a bit before she took it, her smaller hand perfectly fit in his bigger hand. Then with ease, he pulled her entire weight off the floor. She was caught off guard and stumbled forward to his chest. Once a smaller boy, now he stood at 6 feet, easily towering over her. She quickly turned around. Follow me, she said, hiding the red in her cheeks. They both walked together to the hall and they paused when they reached the front door. CG tilted his head, wondering why they suddenly stopped. And then the door was slammed open. Happy birthday. The hall was decorated with flowers and balloons. There was a giant cake in the middle and the people inside sang happy birthday in unison. All of the Hashiras had gathered today along with all of the friends CG had made so far, including Rengoku. The people working in the mansions were also there along with people CG had saved in the past. It was not in Japanese culture to celebrate birthdays. But it was CG, affected by his past life culture, who started the trend of celebrating birthdays by wishing and giving gifts to his fellow Hashiras when it was their birthday. And today, everyone decided to celebrate his birthday to return the favor. He just turned 16, which was the age of adulthood in samurai culture. What a beautiful day this is, Jume said with tears falling from his white eyes and a big birthday cone on his head. Happy birthday CG, Giyu said with a smile. Don't misunderstand, Giyu forced me was Sanemai's excuse even though he was the one who blew all the balloons used to decorate the hall. Let's set our hearts ablaze in celebration, Rengoku said, standing beside his father who came because he was promised free wine. Happy birthday. Naturally, Tenjin was the loudest of them all. Pretty sure he used his breathing style to make his voice even louder. CG stood there, frozen for a moment before a bright smile stretched across his face. He pushed away his desire to say, you guys were so fucking obvious. I saw it coming from a mile away. Instead, he gave them the appropriate reaction of surprise for their effort. But the joy he felt in his heart could not have been truer. Pretty image of Connie. Chapter 51, Marriage? CG's POV. So it's been 2 months again since I turned 16. The Demon Slayer Corps decided to throw a huge party for my birthday since I was officially an adult in samurai culture. And if you didn't know, Demon Slayers were samurai who slay demons. After my birthday, I immediately received a letter from Yubayashiki, telling me that he was sorry to miss the birthday celebration. And in the same letter, he wrote that I could take a vacation for as long as I needed. I was confused at first because how the fuck did he know I was going to ask for a vacation? For those who had forgotten, let me refresh your memories. At the age of 16, I was finally permitted to claim my inheritance. It was why I took the exams during the training arc, remember? So I was planning to ask for a break so that I could settle the documents. But Yubayashiki somehow knew it beforehand and granted me permission. Honestly, it was a little creepy. Anyway, it has been 2 months since then and I had finally settled everything. I was now the rightful owner of huge acres of land and every savings my brother and father, who were both high-ranking military officers, had was finally mine. I was filthy rich now. Well, I was rich before since being a Hashira and completing as many missions as I did paid quite well. But now, I was not just rich, I was filthy rich. CG, it's time for breakfast. I looked through the walls and saw my aunt call for me. In the next second, she realized how stupid she was for calling a deaf person and she came to my room. It has been 2 years, so of course that would slip her mind. She slid open the door to my room and said, "It's time for breakfast, CG." "Coming," I said and got up. On the floor were beautiful paintings I had made just this morning alone. Could you have guessed that having special eyes and perfect movement allowed you to create masterpieces? I didn't know it until I tried. I went out of my room and joined both my uncle and aunt on the table. We all ate the food while having a small conversation between eating. Things were just as it used to be. I had been staying with them for months now since, you know, anything involving the government officials took an extremely long time. If the inheritance did not have sentimental value or was extremely valuable, I wouldn't even bother claiming it due to the hassle. I never told them specifically that I was only here to claim my inheritance, they must have thought that I was finally back. CG, what is your thought on marriage? I saw my uncle say. Finally talking about a topic other than politics? Sure, I can tolerate this one. Marriage is cool, I said while putting a boiled egg in my mouth. Protein. What is your opinion on you getting married? He asked me again. I nearly scoffed. Marrying? I dared not even think of that in my line of profession. I hope I don't, but I could die any fucking moment. It would only take one encounter with the top 3 demons of the upper moon or Musen. Then I'm cooked. I was strong but not on their level just yet. But marriage? That was the dream and one I would hopefully get to experience. I was not given a family in my past life and the one I was born into in this life got taken away from me. So why not make a new family? After everything was over, I hope I could make a big family. That's the dream, I said with a shrug. My uncle and aunt both looked at each other and smiled. I did not know why, but I suddenly had a bad feeling. What? I asked before putting another boiled egg in my mouth. We found a girl. Pause. And then, I spat out the egg in my mouth and started choking on their words. My uncle quickly passed me water and I downed the thing in a few seconds. After that, I took a deep breath and said, "What do you mean you found a girl?" "We found a girl you can marry. The father is an old friend of mine and his daughter is exactly the same age as you and she is looking for a husband. Aren't I a little too young?" I asked with a strained face. "Nonsense, it's the perfect age. She can already marry by law at the age of 15 while you will be able to marry next year. It's the perfect time for an engagement." I sighed and rubbed my forehead. What makes you guys even think of doing such things? That too without my consent. Well, I apologize if we were being too hasty, after all, you just returned. But you are already more than capable of marrying. You have claimed your inheritance, so you have land and house. Not only that, you have the money and you said you also had a high-paying job. Plus, you are handsome and you are educated. There is no reason for us to think otherwise. My aunt said. "If you want, we can stop," my uncle said. "Yes. And wait until next year." "No." Well, I could understand where they were coming from. It was Japan and traditionally, if you were financially stable and had a home, it's common sense that you would marry next. And most marriages were arranged with the parents setting up the couple. They were excited to take the role of my parents that way and find a good girl for me. I understand that. But sadly, I couldn't comply with their desire. Not by a long shot. "I'm sorry, mother, father," I said, calling them with the name I should have been calling since they adopted me. "But I can't marry yet. Heck, I don't know if I will ever be able to marry. I can't tell you the reason why, but I am not ready to love someone like that. I'm not ready to have a family again," I said seriously, and I could see that my words had effect on them. I couldn't have a family again. Not until I eradicate every single one of those demons. Not until I made sure they would never rob me of my treasures again. Not until I made sure I could protect my love. "I see. I understand, my boy," my uncle said with a firm smile while my aunt wiped a tear from the emotions she felt when I called her mom. "And we're sorry to push the topic suddenly on you before asking your opinion on it. It's fine, we will cancel everything," my uncle said, and my heart was finally at peace again. After that, we continued eating our food. The atmosphere was a lot lighter than before as we all had smiles on our faces. Even though we decided to cancel the engagement, we still need to meet them to show respect. It would be an insult if we suddenly told them we cancelled it. "Can you do that for me?" my uncle asked, and I nodded. "Good. Well, the girl's name is Mitsuri Kanroji dash. Asterisk slam? Asterisk." I slammed my hands on the table, making all of the dishes jump from the force before they scattered and fell. I stood up in an instant. "Did you just say, Mitsuri?" "Why yes, her name's Mitsuri Kanroji," my uncle replied. "Dear respected father, Please next time, start with that. You nearly made me commit the biggest fumble in history, I said and wiped my lips. Then I turned around and headed towards the door. Where are you going, CG? Where else? To my wife's house, I said and raised my arm like I was the luckiest man in the world. I'm getting married. What? But you said dash. Sorry, I don't hear what I said because I'm deaf. My aunt ran up to me and grabbed my hand. Let's not get too hasty, CG. You still need to wait a year to even legally marry. Then we just have to do it illegally because I'm ready, I said. My voice had never been firmer. After the name of the girl dropped, the situation had taken a complete turn. First picture of Mitsuri. Chapter 52, Mitsuri Kanroji. CG's POV. I ain't fumbling this one. No way. Traumas be damned. Do you remember that guy who rejected Mitsuri? You know, the one with circle spectacles who had the whole internet coming together just to hate on him and call him an idiot? Yeah, I ain't going to be like that guy. No chance I was going to fumble that badly. In all seriousness, Mitsuri Kanroji was my waifu even in my past life. So the chance of meeting her was already incredible, but having the chance to get married to her? I will just have to crown myself with the title of a fanfiction protagonist because there is no other way I could get this lucky. Even if I did not end up marrying her, I wanted to see her just once. I was a deep admirer of beauty, so I really wanted to see for myself just how beautiful she was and find out if she could compare with girls like the Coco sisters. Not only that, I was curious to know how her body would look like since she was known to have supernatural strength since birth. So all in all, I was excited to meet her. But they live in Tokyo, I said while having flashbacks of the last time I was in Tokyo. I encountered Muzan Kibutsuji the last time I was there and I promised myself to never visit the city again. The experience was unforgettable as it was the closest I had been to death. In the Azusa ward to be specific, my uncle said with a nod. Is there any problem? No, I shrugged. The part of me that was a simp for Mitsuri easily won against the part of me that feared Muzan. When should we go? I asked and both my aunt and uncle looked at me weirdly. You are awfully excited about this so suddenly. Fine, if you want we can go today itself. And so, the three of us headed towards the Azusa ward of Tokyo after we finished our breakfast. Our visit would be a surprise for them since my uncle didn't know I would be so enthusiastic and therefore did not tell them. It took us the whole morning and the early afternoon to reach the ward. My uncle and aunt were not young anymore, so the journey took some time even though we took carriages in most part of the journey. Late in the afternoon, we reached the Azusa ward and came upon the Kanroji's household. The house was decently big with a huge compound surrounding their home. It was obvious that their family was well off. We entered the compound and looked around at all the flowers and trees. It reminded me of the garden back in the flower mansion. There was also a small, artificial stream with a red bridge over it to make the whole place authentic. I immediately recognized that as the place where Mitsuri was rejected many times. The servants greeted us warmly and immediately went to inform the master. It did not take long for the head of the family, Daddy Kanroji, to come out and welcome us. What an unexpected surprise. Thank you for accepting my invitation and coming so quickly, Kenji Kanroji said. Sorry for intruding out of the blue, but my son could not wait to meet your daughter, my uncle replied. Is that so? Thank you for your kindness, CG. I've heard great things about you and I appreciate you going along with the arrangement of us old men, Kenji said, with a small bow, and I bowed even lower to show respect. Come, let me give you a proper welcome, my friend, Kenji said and led us to the house. He and my uncle engaged in small talks as we walked. He also showed us around the compound for a bit before he brought us inside. I'm sure you all must be tired from coming all the way here. Allow us to host you for dinner. I will tell the cook to make more portions, Kenji said as we sat down in the living room. That'd be wonderful, my uncle laughed kindly. Soon, other members of the family came to the living room and we introduced ourselves. I learned that Kenji and his wife had 6 children, with Mitsuri being the middle child. Their older children were already married and were living in the same compound but at different houses. The mother of the household was an elegant older lady with beauty marks under her eyes, and oddly enough, she reminded me of my mother. My uncle and Kenji engaged in a conversation where I also participated as the main topic was about me. My aunt on the other hand was entertained by Kenji's wife Junko as they left to look at the flowers in the garden. Junko, as the mistress of the household, also had to supervise the servants cooking and working. So that left only us 3 dudes to talk. So CG, I heard that you are a master of kendo and you won even at national level. Tell me, have you ever considered opening a dojo? Kenji asked. My most feared question. My plan for the future. There was no plan for me. It was honestly hard to plan for the future when I was not sure I would even survive past 25. It was a weird situation. If things went according to the canon story, Muzan Kibutsuji would die in the final battle, which would take place when I was 19. If we win and I survive, maybe I would consider opening a dojo. I could teach not only swordsmanship but also breathing styles to preserve the tradition of demon slayers. I have learned all 5 major breathing styles, so I could definitely do that. Also, maybe I should preserve the history of demons and demon slayers so that the sacrifices everyone had made would not be forgotten. It would be better than becoming fictional characters in Zenitsu's story. It didn't even have to be officially recognized, it could just be a myth with enough evidence for people to believe in. That'd be interesting. Anyway, to the question, I replied with an answer I had made many years ago. I was a kendo master, which was something Japanese people respected greatly due to the samurai culture which had not completely died out yet. I was also educated. And coupled with my family's legacy as military officers, I said I planned to do the same. My achievements in kendo tournaments and my family's connection would make it easy for me to thrive there. It was a great plan. I would surely look like a boy with a good future ahead, even though in reality, I was not sure I even had a future. I planned on surviving and saving everyone, but I was also not delusional. The conversation went on as the two dudes kept glazing at me, but I was becoming quite impatient because I hadn't met the person whom I had come all the way to see. Where is she? I asked in my mind. It had been an hour since we arrived. Excuse me, but can you tell me where the toilet is? I asked out of the blue. Sure. It's that way, Kenji said and point to the left, go past the corridor and turn left. Thank you, I said and got up before walking away. I allowed my head to turn and look around the house. My eyes released a glow as I used my X-ray vision to scan the entire house. I walked through the corridor and then I suddenly stopped when I finally saw the person I was searching for. But I saw her in a state I never expected, so I paused in surprise. Then I changed my path from the toilet to the room where I found her. In a few seconds, I stood in front of the dark room where she was in. I slid open the door. Wah! I heard a yelp of surprise. I looked at the young woman with black hair and beauty marks under both her eyes. I was not really focused on her appearance. Instead, my attention was on her expression and the situation. What are you doing? I asked. My usual stoic voice might have sounded colder to her because she flinched back like a criminal being caught committing a crime. She stuttered as she looked at her own hands, which were black from dye. What I saw was not the bubbly perfect waifu that we saw in the anime. It was not the sweet and confident girl that I expected. It should have been obvious. That girl did not exist yet. That was 4 years in the future. What I got was something much more raw and real. A girl trying to be something she's not because that's the only way she thought she'd fit in. Hello, I'm your future husband and I want to know, I said and walked closer to her. What are you doing? Image. Chapter 53, Is This Love? Third POV. She was different. She was always different from the others. But she didn't know how scary that was until she turned 15 when she faced her first rejection. That day, she learned that to be different was to be not normal. And to not be normal was to not fit in. I don't think this can work, you are just too strange. You have no softness or gentleness a lady should possess. You are like a gorilla. My hand hurts when you hold it, was what her first fiancé said to her before cancelling the arranged engagement. He said a lot, but maybe he wouldn't have said so much if he knew how much each word hurt her. Her heart bled behind a brittle smile, and that was when she realized the deep sorrow that came with rejection. He didn't want her. But who could blame him? After all, men wanted a weak woman they could protect and provide for. They wanted a woman with a healing touch of love and care. They wanted a woman who was modest. They wanted a dignified noble lady. All of which she was not. She was a woman stronger than any man she had ever encountered. Her touch could crush rocks. They were not soft or healing. She was not modest. Her generous bosoms and butt made her look like a shameless seductress. She was loud and ate a lot, the opposite of what a noble lady should be. She was everything she shouldn't be, and that made her sad. Mitsuri had been intrigued by romance and love ever since she was little. She had read many books and listened to stories about love and romance. Her dream was to find love someday and become a wife. She wanted to dedicate herself to a man she loved who would treasure her like the most precious jewel. She wanted to fall in love with a man who was stronger than her, someone who could protect her from anything in the world. That was the dream of her youthful self. But as she got older, she learned that her fantasy would never come true, all because she was different. But that's okay, she told herself. She could still find love. But alas, she was apparently not fit for the love she was searching for. From a young age, Mitsuri learned that love was the most important thing in the world. To love was to be human. It was the meaning behind everything in life. It could be love for an art, love for a concept, or love for other people. She thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Yet even amongst all else, romantic love, the love between husband and wife, was what she wanted the most. After all, familial love made sense, friendship also made sense. But two strangers loving each other to the point of being able to sacrifice everything they had? Two unrelated people deciding to forever be together because they thought they couldn't live without the other person? That sounded so silly. It was illogical. It was beautiful and Mitsuri wanted it. But, Mother, do you think I will ever be able to find a husband? She asked after her 5th rejection. Oh sweetie, I'm sure you will meet a man one day who would love you just as you are. Like me and your father do, her mother assured her. Mitsuri stayed silent as if accepting her mother's words, but deep down, she didn't believe her. So she decided to do everything she could to fit into the ideal lady. She started dyeing her hair black and wore unflattering clothes. She also started starving herself, both to weaken her body and to behave like a proper lady. She changed herself to become a girl men would like. She was willing to kill her true self if it meant finding love. It might sound stupid to others, but it was not stupid for the future love Hashira. Everyone was born with a purpose, hers just happened to be love. But even after she changed herself, she was still getting rejected. Her suitors were still able to see past her mask. Be normal. Fit in was what she told herself daily. She was chasing the wrong thing in her youthful nativity. It was not love that she was pursuing, at most, it was merely approval. Love was true, so even if she was accepted, it would only be a cheap imitation of love. That day, Mitsuri had another guest. It was a new suitor, one that her father talked highly about. The boy was her age and according to her father, he was the perfect fit for her. But there was one problem. They came to the house unannounced, so Mitsuri had no time to dye her hair black or to change her clothes. She had to hide in her room as she quickly changed her clothes and started smearing black paint on her bright hair. At one point she used to love her pink and green hair. They were happy and colorful, but no suitors liked it. They didn't want a wife that stood out too much. They wanted a girl with the beauty of the moon, not the big bright sun. But while she was busy dyeing her hair, the door to her room suddenly slid open and she was caught red-handed, or should she say black-handed. There he was, her next suitor. One that would reject her soon enough with how things were going. He was handsome, remarkably so. It was something she noticed immediately when she spied on him as they came to her house. But at the moment, her mind did not even register that. Her eyes froze when they greeted his bright purple ones. Those eyes saw everything. Everyone felt uncomfortable when those eyes, which seemingly felt like they could see through every secret, fell upon them. It was especially severe for Mitsuri, who was full of secret insecurities. She felt like all of her flaws were laid bare to him. She couldn't hide anything. Her mask crumbled. Fear started creeping up her heart. It was a fear that a criminal would experience if they were caught committing a crime. "What are you doing?" he asked, and she flicked back. His voice was cold. He was mean. She supposed it was natural since she was trying to catfish him. Words got stuck in her throat. There was a clot of nervousness stopping them from coming out. How could she possibly speak under the gaze of those eyes? They saw through everything. He had seen her true self. "Hello. I'm your future husband and I want to know what you are doing," he said and walked close to her. "Wait, what?" Her breath hitched. That was when she noticed that there was no repulsion in his eyes, even though he had seen through her. They were just really mean, but there was nothing else. No disappointment, no repulsion. There was no rejection. "I was just dyeing my hair," she said, the nervousness melting like ice in summer. "But why would you do that?" he asked. "Your hair is pink and green, it's an exotic color." Then his lips curved ever so slightly. "It's beautiful." What? Her hair was beautiful? That's the first time someone said that to her. Her cheeks couldn't help but burn for some reason. Her heart started racing. It was racing due to fear and embarrassment. Her stomach was doing somersaults in her belly. "Is this love?" she thought to herself. What she was feeling was awfully similar to what she had read in the past. Just then, her father and another man came to the scene. She looked at her father and saw his face fall as if realizing the situation. His expression showed that he thought they were done for. "What is the meaning of this?" the man asked. "Oh, nothing, uncle. It's just that Mitsuri has something on her hair. It should be fine after she washes it off," the boy said and turned around. "Sorry to disturb you, we will wait in the living room," the boy said before he pushed at the man, and they both returned to the living room. Mitsuri and her father watched them leave with wide eyes before they both looked at each other. They were both equally surprised as the anticipated rejection never came. A realization struck them in the silence. Their guests were okay with Mitsuri's appearance. Kenji smiled at his daughter. "Go clean your hair quickly and come to the living room," he said in excitement. Mitsuri nodded and ran to the bathroom to clean her hair, after which she went to the living room to greet the guests and her suitor. During all this, Mitsuri's heart just won't stop beating like an engine. Her cheeks blushed and her eyes sparkled. Had she finally found someone who wouldn't reject her? Would she find love this time? The image. Chapter 53. Is this love? Third POV. She was different. She was always different from the others. But she didn't know how scary that was until she turned 15 when she faced her first rejection. That day, she learned that to be different was to be not normal. And to not be normal was to not fit in. "I don't think this can work, you are just too strange. You have no softness or gentleness a lady should possess. You are like a gorilla. My hand hurts when you hold it," was what her first fiancé said to her before cancelling the arranged engagement. He said a lot, but maybe he wouldn't have said so much if he knew how much each word hurt her. Her heart bled behind a brittle smile, and that was when she realized the deep sorrow that came with rejection. He didn't want her. But who could blame him? After all, men wanted a weak woman they could protect and provide for. They wanted a woman with a healing touch of love and care. They wanted a woman who was modest. They wanted a dignified, noble lady. All of which she was not. She was a woman stronger than any man she had ever encountered. Her touch could crush rocks. They were not soft or healing. She was not modest. Her generous bosoms and butt made her look like a shameless seductress. She was loud and ate a lot, the opposite of what a noble lady should be. She was everything she shouldn't be, and that made her sad. Mitsuri had been intrigued by romance and love ever since she was little. She had read many books and listened to stories about love and romance. Her dream was to find love someday and become a wife. She wanted to dedicate herself to a man she loved who would treasure her like the most precious jewel. She wanted to fall in love with a man who was stronger than her, someone who could protect her from anything in the world. That was the dream of her youthful self. But as she got older, she learned that her fantasy would never come true, all because she was different. But that's okay, she told herself. She could still find love. But alas, she was apparently not fit for the love she was searching for. From a young age, Mitsuri learned that love was the most important thing in the world. To love was to be human. It was the meaning behind everything in life. It could be love for an art, love for a concept, or love for other people. She thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Yet even amongst all else, romantic love, the love between husband and wife was what she wanted the most. After all, familial love made sense, friendship also made sense. But two strangers loving each other to the point of being able to sacrifice everything they had? Two unrelated people deciding to forever be together because they thought they couldn't live without the other person? That sounded so silly. It was illogical. It was beautiful and Mitsuri wanted it. But, mother, do you think I will ever be able to find a husband? She asked after her 5th rejection. Oh sweetie, I'm sure you will meet a man one day who would love you just as you are. Like me and your father do, her mother assured her. Mitsuri stayed silent as if accepting her mother's words, but deep down, she didn't believe her. So she decided to do everything she could to fit into the ideal lady. She started dyeing her hair black and wore unflattering clothes. She also started starving herself, both to weaken her body and to behave like a proper lady. She changed herself to become a girl men would like. She was willing to kill her true self if it meant finding love. It might sound stupid to others, but it was not stupid for the future love Hashira. Everyone was born with a purpose, hers just happened to be love. But even after she changed herself, she was still getting rejected. Her suitors were still able to see past her mask. Be normal. Fit in was what she told herself daily. She was chasing the wrong thing in her youthful nativity. It was not love that she was pursuing, at most, it was merely approval. Love was true, so even if she was accepted, it would only be a cheap imitation of love. That day, Mitsuri had another guest. It was a new suitor, one that her father talked highly about. The boy was her age and according to her father, he was the perfect fit for her. But there was one problem. They came to the house unannounced, so Mitsuri had no time to dye her hair black or to change her clothes. She had to hide in her room as she quickly changed her clothes and started smearing black paint on her bright hair. At one point she used to love her pink and green hair. They were happy and colorful, but no suitors liked it. They didn't want a wife that stood out too much. They wanted a girl with the beauty of the moon, not the big bright sun. But while she was busy dyeing her hair, the door to her room suddenly slid open and she was caught red-handed, or should she say black-handed. There he was, her next suitor. One that would reject her soon enough with how things were going. He was handsome, remarkably so. It was something she noticed immediately when she spied on him as they came to her house. But at the moment, her mind did not even register that. Her eyes froze when they greeted his bright purple ones. Those eyes saw everything. Everyone felt uncomfortable when those eyes, which seemingly felt like they could see through every secret, fell upon them. It was especially severe for Mitsuri, who was full of secret insecurities. She felt like all of her flaws were laid bare to him. She couldn't hide anything. Her mask crumbled. Fear started creeping up her heart. It was a fear that a criminal would experience if they were caught committing a crime. What are you doing? He asked and she fliked back. His voice was cold. He was mean. She supposed it was natural since she was trying to catfish him. Words got stuck in her throat. There was a clot of nervousness stopping them from coming out. How could she possibly speak under the gaze of those eyes? They saw through everything. He had seen her true self. Hello, I'm your future husband and I want to know what you are doing, he said and walked close to her. Wait, what? Her breath hitched. That was when she noticed that there was no repulsion in his eyes, even though he had seen through her. They were just really mean, but there was nothing else. No disappointment, no repulsion. There was no rejection. I was just dyeing my hair, she said, the nervousness melting like ice in summer. But why would you do that? He asked. Your hair is pink and green, it's an exotic color. Then his lips curved ever so slightly. It's beautiful. What? Her hair was beautiful? That's the first time someone said that to her. Her cheeks couldn't help but burn for some reason. Her heart started racing. It was racing due to fear and embarrassment. Her stomach was doing somersaults in her belly. Is this love? She thought to herself. What she was feeling was awfully similar to what she had read in the past. Just then, her father and another man came to the scene. She looked at her father and saw his face fall as if realizing the situation. His expression showed that he thought they were done for. What is the meaning of this? The man asked. Oh, nothing, uncle. It's just that Mitsuri has something on her hair. It should be fine after she washes it off, the boy said and turned around. Sorry to disturb you, we will wait in the living room, the boy said before he pushed at the man, and they both returned to the living room. Mitsuri and her father watched them leave with wide eyes before they both looked at each other. They were both equally surprised as the anticipated rejection never came. A realization struck them in the silence. Their guests were okay with Mitsuri's appearance. Kenji smiled at his daughter. Go clean your hair quickly and come to the living room, he said in excitement. Mitsuri nodded and ran to the bathroom to clean her hair, after which she went to the living room to greet the guests and her suitor. During all this, Mitsuri's heart just won't stop beating like an engine. Her cheeks blushed and her eyes sparkled. Had she finally found someone who wouldn't reject her? Would she find love this time? The image. Chapter 54, New Objective. CG's POV. Pink. It was pink. Not just any pink, it was bubblegum pink, the color you would expect on Barbies and angels. Obviously, I was talking about her muscles. I don't know where your dirty little mind had gone, but I was referring to every fiber of muscles in her body. Although, I could assure you that she was pink there as well, considering how her body was mostly the color of pink. There are two types of muscles in the human body. I've said this before, they are fast twitch muscles and slow twitch muscles. Fast twitch muscles were white and slow twitch muscles were red. But there was also another muscle type which was the color of pink. Normally, you would never find this in the human body or mammals in general. The only creatures I knew had pink muscles were fishes. They require incredible strength to swim with the heavy resistance of water, so they have pink muscles. Pink muscle was the combination of red and white muscle, slow twitch and fast twitch muscle. They were a mix of the two, the best of both worlds. And apparently, Mitsuri's muscles were made entirely of said pink muscles because obviously she was just built differently. Not only that, her muscles were 8 times denser than normal. Her body was different from the extraordinary bodies I had encountered. Rengoku, whose body was bred to be a swordsman, Tenjin's body was built for speed, Gyume was simply a superior human. But Mitsuri was even more extraordinary than that. It was simply alien, something which I never even thought was possible. It was simply divine. I shifted my focus to her outer appearance and my X-ray stopped. Her facial features were delicate and cute. Much to my surprise, her beauty was comparable to that of Connie's. I said comparable because their beauty was fundamentally different from the other, so there was no way to tell who was prettier. Connie possessed an elegant beauty with sharp features that effortlessly exuded sensuality. She was like the moon. On the other hand, Mitsuri had delicate features with adorable shapes. She gave off the feeling that she should be protected. Her beauty was blinding, noticeable to anyone who looked at her general direction. Unlike Connie, who got more beautiful as you looked at the detail of her face. She was like the sun. Suffice to say, I was not disappointed. The only thing left to do was try and tear my eyes away from her because I think I've been staring for too long. My thoughts were cut short when I felt my uncle pinch me on my thighs. I blinked and returned to reality. It was then that I noticed Mitsuri shifting uncomfortably in her place. I understood my mistake immediately. Although the subject of my analysis never realized the abilities of my eyes, humans felt instinctively uncomfortable when they were so thoroughly observed. They couldn't pinpoint why, but most people had told me I have creepy eyes. And it was really not smart to stare too much at the girl who had many insecurities. Which was incredibly stupid, by the way. How the fuck was a beauty like her insecure? I never thought I would see the expression she currently had on her face. It was one of the downsides of meeting these beloved characters too soon. They had not gone through the things they were meant to go through, so they had not grown yet. I'm sorry. I was just enchanted by your beauty, I said with a straight face. I didn't mince my words. Much to my amusement, Mitsuri started getting extremely red. I could see steam rising from her head. She was adorable. Are you sure it's not because of the unusual hair color that you were staring at her? Don't be afraid to be honest. Many of the previous suitors had complained about her hair, Kenji said, causing her daughter to stop blushing as she remembered some bad memories. Way to ruin my Riz, Daddy Kanroji. My Riz was already horrible, but you ruined even that. No, I have no problem with her hair and instead find them pretty. I actually have a friend with hair just as colorful as hers, I said. The image of Rengoku flashed in my mind. Oh, is that so? Good to hear, Kenji said with a smile. After that, silence fell between us. Mitsuri was way too shy, while my social skill level was not high enough to start a conversation with a pretty girl like her. Our respective parents were all too amused as they watched us. Now that Mitsuri is finally here, why don't you two get to know each other? Kenji said. Mitsuri dear, why don't you show Seiji around the garden? Okay, she squeaked out before standing up. She gestured to follow me and I did. We walked out of the house, leaving the two men to themselves. I followed Mitsuri to their garden and we slowly walked beside each other. That was until we walked across the red bridge above the stream. She suddenly stopped, and when I noticed, I turned back to look at her. I want to apologize for what happened back there, she said, and bowed down so low that I was impressed by her flexibility. It was nothing worth apologizing for. No, she shook her head. Although you were okay with my unusual hair, I tried to deceive you by dyeing my hair. I'm so sorry. It was really not a big deal considering people dye their hair all the time. Even older women did it to hide their silver hair or because they didn't like their natural hair color. It was why dye existed in the first place. But I guess it was the intention that counts. I nodded. I accept your apology. She wore a blue kimono with flower patterns on it. The setting sun cast a warm orange hue over us, but the world was as bright as day when I looked at her. Her exotic pink and green hair danced to the tune of the breeze, and when she gave me a bright smile, it was almost a bit too much, like someone suddenly injecting honey and syrup into your bloodstream. Too sweet. I looked away. Let's see. I need an objective here, don't I? Or else I would not be able to interact with her properly. I've already done it for Giyu, so let's do this again. Let me change Mitsuri earlier than in canon and speed up her character development. The objective was to make her realize that she was enough and she didn't need to change. There were people who would accept her as she was and even treasure her because of her uniqueness. Honestly, that sounded like a problem every teenager had faced at least once in their life. Mitsuri really was the most normal one among the Demon Slayer cast, wasn't she? Are you hungry, Mitsuri? It was a question I already knew the answer to. My eyes told me that she was starving herself. Her body was not getting the appropriate nutrients that it needed. Her body needed food even more than the few beggars we encountered while coming here. Why don't we go to a restaurant to get something to eat? I asked her again. But we are going to have dinner soon, she said with a puzzled look. I shook my head. If my uncle and aunt were present, they might judge her. I wanted her to eat as much as she could, so it was better to take her to a restaurant. I want to eat with you. Only the two of us, I said, and she blinked cutely before blushing. Okay, she said, and then we both left the Kanroji compound and headed to a restaurant in the town. Slam? And that is all your order, sir. Thank you for coming to us, the chef said with a tired smile. Sweats traveled down his aged face. Omuris, pork cutlets, miso soup, rice, fish, and nigiri, sakura machi etc. All kinds of foods were on the table which were meant for a family. All the foods looked like they were meant for 20 people while only Mitsuri and I sat opposite each other. Are you going to eat all of this? Mitsuri asked me with a gulp. I was deaf but I felt like I could hear her stomach growling. We are going to eat all this, I said. We. Yes, we. I have special eyes that can see things, so I know you are hungry and your body needs the food, I said. She did not say anything, just looking at the food on the table. Why are you hesitating? The reason you were holding back was because you were afraid that your suitor wouldn't like it, right? I said. Well, worry not, I am actually really attracted to girls who can eat lots of food. Really? She asked. Really? I said and picked up a sakura machi with my chopsticks and brought it close to her mouth. I remember in the anime that the reason why her hair turned pink and green was because she was eating too many sakura machi. It was her favorite food. Finally, she took the food in her mouth and she never stopped after that. Meanwhile, I simply enjoyed the incredible sight of a rather small girl eating food meant for 20 men. It was astonishing, especially with my eyes that could see everything that happened inside. I was going to teach her that it was okay to be herself. She didn't need to change, the world can change instead. Image. Chapter 55, Helping a Waifu. CG's POV. Holy shit, it's all gone. Call me dramatic but I know you would react the same way after witnessing a girl finishing the amount of food meant for 20 people all by herself. It was bullshit, like many other things in this world of shounen anime. How the fuck did she weigh 56 kilograms with muscles 8 times denser than normal? All canon BTW, how the fuck did her body digest all those foods so quickly? Where the fuck did those energy go? Honestly, I got over such illogical observations a long time ago. This world was different from my past life, their logic could not be compared. That much should be obvious when there was a demon king who looked like Michael Jackson and got his power from a flower. But still, this was one of the rare occasions when I was shocked. Her body was just a fucking mystery even with my eyes. It did not follow common logic. How the fuck can it do that? Why the fuck was it so beautiful? I wanted to explore it. Mitsuri blushed a deep shade of red while looking down at the ground. She had finally come to her senses after finishing all the food. She released a cute little burp after which she immediately covered her lips. Even though I told her she could eat as much as she wanted, there was guilt and shame on her face. You know what? Maybe the gods gave me all the wealth I had just so that I could provide for this little glutton wrapped in a fluff of cuteness, and I am always 2 steps ahead. You finished it all, I said. Maybe my voice came out more bewildered than expected because she shrunk even smaller and nodded. That's amazing. You ate it all, I said as genuine laughter rolled off my throat. It was rare that I would laugh. Mitsuri seemed to realize that too even though she'd only known me for a few hours. Her big round eyes gawked at me like they were looking at the strangest sight. I didn't even get to eat anything. She inclined her head. I am so sorry. Don't sweat it. We still have dinner waiting for us anyway, I said. I couldn't even order more because the shop literally served us everything they had. This was also why there were no onlookers to gawk at Mitsuri like she was an animal in the zoo. I made sure to send all possible distractions away before letting her indulge in her food. Let's return, I said, and we both left the restaurant. We returned to the Kanroji compound just in time for dinner, and believe it or not, Mitsuri was still able to eat a normal portion of food after all that. Dinner was a joyous affair. My uncle and Kenji were old friends and that was evident. With the 2 men of the family getting along, the rest of the members did too. Stories about when Mitsuri and I were young were shared. Mitsuri's parents especially had a lot of things to talk about and many tales to tell. She was kind of like the odd one in the family, in a good way. Her parents said she was nothing like her other siblings, so she had plenty of fun stories. My uncle and aunt also shared stories of how I grew up. Mine were not as humorous or fun as Mitsuri's, but they were remarkable achievements. As a reincarnated person and a prodigy, I was extremely mature for my age when I was young and achieved many impressive feats. I was a little sad that my uncle and aunt did not have a funny story to share about me. At that time, I was laser focused on getting stronger, so I sacrificed my childhood. I barely even spent time with them. But even with all that, they were always so kind and understanding. They didn't ask anything in return. While I was suspicious of them and chalked their kindness to them wanting my inheritance, they never stopped loving me. But here I was, still calling them uncle and aunt even in my mind. Forget addressing them as mother and father, I haven't even acknowledged their names. I was bitter. My suspicions, thinking I was smarter than everyone else, and the barrier I erected around me were just a way for me to cope because truthfully, I never wanted to love again at that time. I didn't want to have a family again, because the pain I felt when it was taken from me was too much, too unbearable. I didn't want heaven if it meant risking hell. I just wanted to be fine. But those fears were slowly dying as strength grew in its place. As I was gaining the power to protect my family and ensure it was not taken from me again, the barriers slowly crumbled away. So I hoped in the future, we could get even closer. Anyway, after dinner, we stayed for a little while longer and the important question was imposed upon me. So CG, what do you think of my daughter? Did you get along well? Kenji asked the question. Although my parents had arranged the meeting, it was still ultimately my decision whether I was engaged with Mitsuri or not. Kenji was asking for an answer to that. If I didn't like her, I would say something like praising her daughter or say things like how I wanted to get to know her better. I shouldn't outright say that I didn't want to marry her, as that would be a great insult. Basically, if I didn't say I wanted her as a wife, it would be the same as rejection. Anything other than confirmation would be taken as rejection. So what did I say? She'd make a lovely wife. I was not sure where I was going with this or whether I truly wanted to spend the rest of my life with Mitsuri, but I left that for 20-year-old me, who by that time would have probably ended the demon war or died trying. But the reactions I got from Mitsuri and her parents made me glad I accepted. Mitsuri herself had a small and earnest smile with tears of joy, while her parents were truly glad to find someone who did not reject their daughter instantly. After that, we left the Kanroji household. Since it was too late to go home, we went to an inn nearby where we all spent the night. The next morning we went home. Although the engagement was seemingly done, we were not rushing it. I was not even legally able to marry yet, so marriage was still a thing in the far future. All in all, it was a great experience. The next day, I think this was the first time I had ever been on a proper date. Shinobu and I would go out at night to hunt and experiment on demons, while Connie and I had gone on a joint mission on more than one occasion, but those were not dates. Mitsuri and I were currently walking around the compound. We had just returned from the market and now we were taking a peaceful stroll in the garden. She had gotten noticeably comfortable around me, but she was still guarded and hesitant to be her true cheery self. I was able to get a glimpse of it, but at the moment she was still hiding in fear of rejection. While we were walking past the huge stacking boulders near the stream, an idea suddenly struck me. I stopped walking and looked at the stones. CG. Mitsuri, do you think you are stronger than me? I asked suddenly, and she blinked in surprise. What makes you say that? No reason. I was just curious. I said. You are a man, of course, you'd be stronger than me, she said, but my eyes see through her lies easily. Now it was not just a matter of helping her. The fact that she thought I was weaker genuinely rubbed my ego the wrong way. Let's show her that she was not the only one with special talent. I went ahead to one of the smaller boulders. It was around the size of a car wheel and would probably weigh around close to 100 kilograms. I picked it up with ease and put it over my head. AHH. Mitsuri gasped softly in surprise. I put down the stone in front of her and said, now you try. She was hesitant at first, but seeing how I easily picked the stone up, she thought it would not be a problem if she did the same. She didn't know that the stone was already heavy enough that no normal man would even be able to lift it. She picked it up and also put it above her head. I was genuinely surprised at the ease with which she threw the weight up. My eyes glowed purple as I watched her pink muscles produce raw strength like it was their sole purpose. That was good. But how about this one? I said before grabbing another boulder, a bigger one this time, and lifting it up again with no effort. Muscles trained with the eyes of the transparent world since when I was a child were nothing less of perfection. It won't lose to her pink muscles. Or maybe it will. I thought to myself when I saw her easily throw up the weight again. For some reason, I found that extremely hot. Did I have a thing for strong women? I couldn't help but imagine a child between us. What if he inherited my eyes and talent with her body? Wouldn't he basically be the second coming of Yoriichi? If I didn't end Muzan, he probably would. Anyway, Mitsuri and I entered a contest of strength. Although hesitant at first, Mitsuri became increasingly competitive as I was able to match her strength with no real struggle on my part. In the end, I was the winner. Although she had an incredible body, she had never trained in her life while I had trained for more than half my life. Plus I did a lot of training with boulders during my training with Jume. I was not exactly normal either, so it was natural for her to lose. HAAA, ha, HAAA. Mitsuri's labored breath came with smoke. Her cheeks were flushed red and sweat covered her body. Although part of it was because she was tired from all the lifting, most of it was because, oddly enough, she was very turned on at the moment. Her eyes shone with lust as she looked up at me from the ground she sat on. I don't think she even realized what she was feeling. And I probably wouldn't too if not for my eyes that saw everything. So she has a strength fetish. I made a mental note in my head while scratching my cheeks helplessly. I sat down beside her and waited for her to calm down, which she eventually did after 10 minutes. You are very different from other girls, you know that, right? I said suddenly. The mind was clear after a good workout, so she immediately perked up. Her brain processed my words quickly. Yes. Do you know how you are different? I asked. She stayed silent for a few seconds before she confessed with eyes looking down. No other girls are as strong as me, nor do they eat as much as I do. Unlike them, I am not elegant. I am not ladylike, she said with sad eyes. Are you sad about that? I asked and she nodded. Well, you shouldn't be. I said. It means that you are special and all of the people who rejected you are merely envious. You don't have to change and pretend to be someone you are not, Mitsuri. Do you want to live your whole life as someone you are not? No, I don't want that, she said after a thoughtful silence. Then stop pretending. I said, you know, I was told that I would meet you 2 days ago, but I don't think I've really met you. I promise you, after you start being true to yourself, you will find that there are people in this world who will not only accept you but love you for who you really are. Really? Her voice was shaky and I could see tears forming in her eyes. Yes, there are your parents and also, I said and pointed at myself. There is this guy. It was not a lie. Although I met her only a few days ago, I have known her since my past life. I absolutely loved her character when I watched the anime. Her bright personality and bubbly attitude were a huge contrast to the tragic themes of the anime. Even in an intense fight against the upper moons, she was unapologetically being herself. While everyone fought out of hatred and revenge, she was the only one fighting because of her love for her friends and the Demon Slayer Corps. I was always attracted to that, probably because I was so hateful. Thank you, she whispered softly as her tears finally flowed down her eyes like a dam. Then she lunged at me and her arms tightly wrapped around my torso, knocking the breath out of me. Thank you so much, she said and cried in my chest. It was easier than I expected. I wonder how much she needed to hear those words. No problem, Mitsuri, I said and patted her head. She continued bawling her eyes out and she hugged me even tighter. But her giant balloon breast acted as a cushion so I was not hurt even with her insane squeezing strength. It felt amazing. I'll take this as my reward. Image. Chapter 56, End of Vacation. CG's POV. 1 month later. CG. Mitsuri called out while she ran up to me with the smilest smile on her face. Her eyes met mine but I didn't meet hers. Instead, my eyes were locked on something else. Ever heard of jiggle physics? Well, that shit was even more magnificent in an anime world. My eyes could not focus anywhere else. God, I love gravity. But you know what's even better? When it was in slow motion. God, I love my eyes. She reached me after a few seconds because I refused to move from my spot. Forget running up to her, I had to resist the urge to create distance so that I could enjoy the sight a little longer. Did I keep you waiting for long? She was able to ask without missing a breath even after running up to me. Nope, you are right on time. As always, I said and she tilted her head to the side before pushing out her chest, making them jiggle again and appear bigger. I think she knew I liked them. There she stood in front of me, Mitsuri Kanroji, in all her glory. Without a mask, without a lie. It took a month but at last, I got to meet her. And she was beautiful. She wore a long black skirt with a white top and a haori over her dress. She was dressed in a very modern fashion, which was a trend these days in cities like Tokyo. But she wore it because it was easier to move compared to a kimono and it felt more comfortable. Her hair was bright exotic pink with green ends that seemed to shine alongside the sun. Coupled with her bubbly attitude and her dress, she attracted many eyes. But she did not shrink under those gazes and only smiled at mine. What are we going to do today, CG? She asked with excitement in her eyes. We have been going on many dates this month to get to know each other better, so there was not much that we haven't done. Be it going to parks, trying out different restaurants or riding a train, we've done most of the things that could be done in the city. So today, I thought of something unique. We are going to the mountains, I said, and Mitsuri blinked her emerald eyes, unsure if that was exciting or not. In the end, she seemed to come to the conclusion that anything with me would be fun, so she grinned. Let's go then, she said before pulling me forward and leading me somewhere as if she knew where we would be going. I kept myself from telling her that we were going in the opposite direction. In the bustling city of Tokyo, Mitsuri led me through the streets for a while until she eventually stopped and turned back with a blushing face. The mountain is this way, right? I chuckled, which only made her more embarrassed. We left the city of Tokyo and went to the mountains. I have been there before and I cleared a small path through the forest when I planned this date. The only problem was the hiking, which was not really a problem for us with our superior physique. We didn't even break a sweat. I led her to beautiful places in the forest like a flower garden, a small pond, or places with beautiful sceneries. All of which I knew because I liked beautiful places. It was a great experience for Mitsuri, who was a city girl and spent her life in urban areas. We even encountered a few animals while we hiked up the mountain, a friendly deer, timid rabbits, and a cute little fox. She was enjoying the date. The only time I saw her smile wider was when we were on a food tour where we tried every bakery in the city of Tokyo. We spent the entire afternoon in the mountains, enjoying the isolation and peace that the city could not provide. It was just the two of us, and Mitsuri seemed to be very conscious about that, considering she blushed a lot today than other days. In the end, we finally reached the peak of the highest mountain where a picnic basket awaited us. There were food and other things that I left yesterday and were protected by yours truly, Raven, from other animals while I was away. Then Mitsuri proceeded to flex her cooking skills by making food with the items and ingredients. As someone who liked eating, she was great at making food. We sat down in a comfortable spot and enjoyed our time while eating. We stayed like that for nearly an hour before the sun finally began to set. It was the end of the day and the beginning of my favorite time, sunset. We enjoyed the sunset together. The sun sank into the horizon, giving the last warmth of sunshine in the color of thick honey and the promise of rising once more. The sun, which had shone so brightly, finally rested behind the mountains, signifying the end of another day which can never be reclaimed. Darkness descended to the world, but only for a moment, as countless stars took the place of the sun in the sky. They glittered like gems in the sky, finally getting the time to shine after being outshined by the sun. They seemed to be competing for the spotlight as they spread infinitely in the endless expanse above. The moon hung in the air, its gentle ray replacing the sun's. The transition between day and night, the blue sky and the black sky, was an incredible scene that I never got tired of witnessing. It's beautiful, Mitsuri said. Her green eyes were able to reflect the beauty of the sky. It is. I agreed. Thank you for bringing me here. I smiled. She was always so grateful for every good thing that happened to her. It was one of her greatest traits. We peacefully sat under the night until Raven suddenly flew towards me and sat on my head. I was surprised since she had not done this ever since I was on vacation. But then what she told me shifted my entire mood in an instant. Demon. CG. Mitsuri instantly called my name when she felt the sudden shift in my mood, but I did not respond. My eyes started glowing purple as I turned my neck to look in the direction where the demon was coming from. My eyes pierced through the thick jungle and skipped the distance before locking on the body of the disgusting creature. The demon did not know why, but he flinched when my eyes landed on him. A foreboding emerged in his vile heart, but he was too stupid to heed the warning his instincts were no doubt giving him. He continued making his way towards us. CG? What happened? She asked while nudging my shoulder. You're making me scared. She was a very emphatic girl, so even though she did not know what was happening, she could feel it through me. It's nothing, don't worry, I said and got up from the blanket on the floor. Then I made my way to a tree and grabbed my sword, which was propped against it. I knew something like this could happen, so I left my sword here yesterday. I felt more complete when I had the sword in my hand than when I did not. By then Mitsuri had come up to me, so I told her to stay behind me. Even before a minute passed, the demon reached us. He walked out of the forest and came to the clearing. Well, what do we have here? The demon said while licking his lips. The demon was around 7 feet tall with a very muscular body. His eyes were completely red and demonic, and he had 3 horns on his head. I could tell at a glance that he was stronger than ordinary demons. If I had to guess, he was the demon that ruled over the territory of Tokyo. Strong demons had their own hunting grounds and territories after all, just like top predators. If it is not a couple having a romantic time in the mountains alone, the demon said in evil amusement, not knowing that they just served themselves on a silver platter. CG. Mitsuri whispered, her body trembled and she lightly tugged at my haori. What is that? She was scared, and understandably so. She had never seen a demon in her life, and the one before us was especially intimidating with his hulking stature. That's a demon. I said, don't worry, it won't hurt you while I'm here. Her body stopped trembling and I could see her heart calming down after my words. Whatever it was that stood before us, my words were enough to comfort her. That was incredibly adorable, I thought in my mind, and I couldn't help but smile. I never smiled genuinely in the presence of a demon before. She always made me do the most shocking things with no effort whatsoever. Oh, you know about demons? That makes me wonder, he started, and his voice got incredibly low. I could see the vibration. Why, you are not running away. Silence hung in the air after his words fell. A chilling breeze blew upon us. Then I broke the silence. I pity you. Huh, he mumbled, confused. Then I grabbed the hilt of my sword and stepped 1 foot forward to get into a stance. I did not explain my sentence, but I thought in my mind, how unfortunate he was to encounter a Hashira while he was on vacation. He truly had bad luck. But I suppose that's karma. Wait, that sword, he said, and his eyes shook with rage and veins popped around his eyes. Are you a demon slayer? I took a breath as insane volumes of air filled my lungs. Then I exhaled in a pattern that was unlike any singular style of the 5 major breathing styles that I have learned. The pattern was a mix between 2 breathing styles. My body cut through the air, faster than the speed of sound. My attack had no sound because it could not catch up to me. I was too fast for the demon to notice me. Wind breathing and thunder breathing were the fastest breathing styles. When mixed together, I was able to attain speed, unlike anything the demon had ever seen. I was easily faster than even the sound Hashira. My blade swung at an even faster speed. Discarding air resistance, my blade bit into the demon before it could even think. In the next instant, I was behind the demon and time resumed like normal. A loud explosion of sound followed, but the sound was so high-pitched that it was impossible to hear with the human ears. But the animals living in the mountain all reacted to the sound. The demon's face split into 3 before his entire head slid off his neck. Soon after, his body also started falling apart as it was cut into 100 pieces by the wind blades. It was the speed of thunder breathing first form, thunderclap and flash mixed with the violent waves of wind breathing 7th form, gale, sudden wave. The result was a catastrophe that happened in less than a second. Hey. I released a sigh and sheathed my sword after the demon was reduced to dust. It has been 3 months since I took the vacation after my 16th birthday. I guess this was the universe's way of telling me that I needed to return. It's time to end my vacation. And I guess I have a little explaining to do, I said and turned to Mitsuri, who was not terrified at all. Her cheeks were flushed red and her breath was haggard and she was excited, but most importantly, why is she looking at me like that? Chapter 57, Breaking the News to Mitsuri. CG's POV. I guess I have a little explaining to do, I said, but then I stopped when I saw the state she was in. Her eyes had a primal glint in them, her cheeks flushed and her breath came out needy. A quick glance at her with the transparent world and I saw her womb throbbing and her walls clenched. Is she? No. She is fucking turned on right now. Holy shit. Like, girl, I know you have a fetish for strong men, but what the hell is this? I thought while looking at her. But then again, maybe it's not so strange considering one of her main reasons for joining the Demon Slayer Corp was to find a husband, a man stronger than her. And what was in front of her was the strongest Hashira, so I couldn't fault her. Are you okay? I asked, lacing fake concern in my voice. I like her hot and bothered, to be honest, since it was due to me anyway. She gasped and came back to reality. A massive blush found her cheeks and her innocence won over her fetish. I'm okay, she muttered, gathering her bearings. She shook her head and the last thought of indecency left her head as questions replaced them. CG, what was that? That was a demon, I answered. A demon? Like from folk tales and books. They are similar, except demons are real, as you just saw, I said and gave a comforting smile when I saw fear emerge on her face. Don't be afraid, there are people like me, the demon slayers, who protect society from these demons. Her pretty eyes locked with mine and I could see thoughts swirling behind them as she processed my words. She tore her eyes away and looked at the place where the demon previously lay, sliced into many pieces, but it was no longer there. She gulped. I trust you was her final reply. Adorable. Why is she so adorable? I walked forward and gave her a hug. She was surprised at first before she melted in my embrace and her arms snaked around my body to hug me back. Let's return, your parents would be worried by now, I said. And it was not really appropriate for a woman to stay with a man after the sun was down, even if they were engaged. It could even destroy their reputation. If we suddenly broke the engagement, she would have a harder time finding a suitor just because she was with a man even after the sun fell. It's just the culture. Japanese put purity in high regard, especially for women. It was the greatest virtue she could have. We walked down the mountain and I used the time to answer her question and explain the hidden war that had been ongoing for hundreds of years now. The war between demons and demon slayers. I explained to her what demons were, how the sun's rays were deadly to them and how they needed the flesh of humans to survive. Why human flesh though? Can't they just eat animals like us? She asked. It was a genuine question that made me hum in thought. Probably because they are still part human and their body need human flesh in particular for sustenance. Their stomachs could also be only attuned to digesting human flesh. Or most likely, humans just taste better than any other meat and it could increase their strength as well. She was intrigued by the demon slayers as well. Demons can regenerate and heal from most weapons except ones that are made from a special ore called scarlet ore, which is found on the top of mountains absorbing sunlight. You want to see it? I said and put my sword forward. She became flustered instantly. No, it's okay, she said. It was considered a show of great respect and trust if a samurai allowed you to touch and see his sword. It was considered a part of their soul and it meant the samurai allowed you to see their soul. It was an act that showed a close relation, an intimate one especially if it was to a woman. I didn't really care about those though. After the Meiji restoration, such traditions were stopped but since that was recent, it still exists today. Here, it's okay, I don't mind. I said with a smile and shoved it in her hand so she could take a look. It was not that I took the culture seriously but she did, and I wanted to see her blush more. She carefully examined my otaki in her hand. Even with her limited knowledge, she could feel that it was a masterpiece, a weapon above the rest. It's heavy, she commented. Was it? I've been using it since I was 13 years old so I go used to the weight. The muscle structure of my body also developed to carry and swing the long blade so at this point, it felt like normal katana to me. After that, she carefully returned the sword to me. So this demon slayer, are they strong? She asked me. Yes, they are strong. Extremely so when compared to normal people, the Hashiras are able to do feats no ordinary man would believe in their life. I said. Incredible, she said. Are they even stronger than you? I paused my steps and Mitsuri did too after she noticed. She looked back, a little worried that I might not like her question for whatever reason. I only flashed her a smile. I always wanted to do this. No, after all, I said. I am the strongest. PFTT, that sounds sillier than I thought. I said with a chuckle. She seemed to be impressed though, and she believed me. Not that it was a lie. With my mixed breathing, I could now speed Bleeyes even the likes of Jume. Let's hurry. I said. Coming. I'm a coward. Did you ever notice? Almost all of the connections and bonds I have formed in this life was with characters I have known in the past. I was not brave enough to form deep connections with people I was not aware of, real people whom I never knew as a character. Because the last time I bonded with random people, my family, I lost them and I had never mourned harder for a loss. That's why I'm afraid now. The characters I knew from my past life, I was aware of their future somewhat. I knew when they would die, when they would be in danger and I also knew they were strong, most of them being Hashiras or future Hashiras. This decreased the risk of me losing them significantly. It was one of the reasons why I never formed a close relationship with my aunt and uncle. They were weak and I had no clue about what would happen to them in the future. There was too much risk in loving them too much. On the flip side, this was why I easily formed a connection with Mitsuri. She was strong, and a future Hashira. She only died at the end of the canon story so there was a low risk for loving her. She shouldn't die randomly. She was strong, I was here and fate was on her side. But now I found myself questioning this mindset. What if my existence had changed the future too much at this point? What if her survival was not certain anymore? I'm not sure I want Mitsuri to become a demon slayer. It was a strange change in my mindset because I had every intention of being the one to introduce her to the Demon Slayer Corp. She viewed it as a family in the canon, a place that accepts and values her. The thought of bringing her with me after I returned even crossed my mind. But now I was against it. It was strange because I had no problem with Rengoku being a demon slayer and a Hashiras even knowing it would lead to his death, and I consider him my best friend. Did this overprotectiveness stem from the fact that I viewed her as a wife already and wanted to protect her? I'm not sure. But all thoughts aside, I think it's time to end all this. I need to leave now, I have duties to fulfill. So I broke the news to my uncle and aunt first. They were initially surprised, but it did not take them long to accept the fact that I was not done with my travels. I was sure that Mitsuri's parents wouldn't have a problem as well, since I couldn't even marry legally yet. But the main problem lies in Mitsuri. How would she take the news? So today, I called her to a restaurant that had great dessert. Let's see how this goes. Chapter 58, A Hopeless Romantic. Third POV. Mitsuri. Mitsuri was a hopeless romantic all her life. She dreamed of love, she hoped for love, and so she had a great expectation for love and how it would feel like. So would you believe me if I said it was better than she ever expected? Because it was. To love someone romantically was vastly different and exactly how she imagined it would be. Love was not butterflies in her stomach, it was her stomach doing somersaults. Love was not being flawless to earn it, it was being loved despite the flaws. Love was not about looking perfect, it was the perfect way she was seen. Love was not about who is stronger, it's the safety she found in his arms. It was not a soft caress like she hoped, but a violent pull, one that left her breathless but alive despite the lack of air. Love was beautiful. More than she'd ever hoped it would be. A month ago, she wouldn't believe it. She wouldn't believe that she would be so fulfilled. She wouldn't believe how perfect she felt now even when she was far from it. She tried to be like other girls. She tried to fit in. She was dyeing her hair black and ate less to become weaker and appear more elegant. She was trying to hide all the aspects he loved about her. Such a silly thing. He liked her. No, like he really likes her. Not the horrible disguise that she was putting on, just her. And that was more liberating than she could put into words. It was different from her family's love. Her father and mother loved her as a daughter, her siblings loved her as a sister. Even if someone else had taken her place, and another was born instead of her, they would still love that person the same because she would still be their daughter and sister. But his love was different. He loved her because she was herself. Knowing that, she felt enough. Knowing that, she realized she didn't need to fit in. Who cares about other people? Who cares about other men? Only he was everything and more. This mindset was quite different from her canon counterpart, where she was comfortable with her own skin and found a place in the Demon Slayer Corps. But the outcome was the same, her being true to herself, so CG did not even notice. Or does he even love me back? Her legs, which had been kicking, came to a stop and her jolly mood suddenly shattered like glass with that single question. She had the habit of getting ahead of herself and living in her own delusions. So, did CG love her back or not? At least, he must love me a little, right? She said while looking up at the ceiling as she lay on her bed, futon. It had been a month and he had not rejected her yet. He had also invited her more frequently to dates, and from what he said, he was happy with the engagement. That should imply that he definitely loves her back, right? At least he must love her a little. She was delusional sometimes, but she was not so out of touch with reality that she would expect him to love her as much as she did or as quickly as she did. Because as it was already said, Mitsuri was a hopeless romantic all her life. Falling for him was about the easiest thing she'd ever done, as if she was born to do so. But she hoped he loved her back even just a little, like how he loves a puppy. Or is that too much because he really loves puppies? She noticed. I don't know, she said, rolling around the bed. The emotions in her heart demanded action. She looked like she'd gone mad. But I guess that's what happens when a girl experiences her first love. It was like the first seed on a fertile, virgin soil. Right then, Mitsuri heard something knock at her door. She was surprised at first, and a little scared. But when she heard repeated knocking/pecking sounds, she left her bed and slid open the door. Raven. She was surprised to see the black sparrow in the middle of the night. The bird gave her a dead stare as if it was not too amused at her existence. Mitsuri felt like she had wronged the bird somehow by her mere presence in this world. Then she noticed the letter the bird had on her feet. She beamed a smile. It was probably CG. There was a lack of communication in this world, so he would often send Raven to give letters. Usually, the letter would contain the time and place where they would meet for a date, so Mitsuri took the letter and eagerly opened it. She was not disappointed as she saw a time and place for a meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow, but we had a date today, she said in surprise before a wide smile took over her face. They only went on dates for 2 to 3 times a week. This was the first time they would meet 2 days in a row. Did he really miss her that much already? Did he want to see her again so soon? Such thoughts swirled in her mind. The bird's eyes got more dead when it saw Mitsuri's smile. She turned around and quickly flew away from the happy girl. Oh, he really loves me, she said and held the letter near her heart. Now she had to sleep quickly so that tomorrow could come sooner. The next day, I have to leave. I know this is sudden, but there is no better way to say it. Shadow fucking Matt, please. I'll miss you. Miss her? She'll probably die. I plan on leaving today, so this will probably be the last time we see each other for a while. Chapter 59, Last Date. CG's POV. We were in a cafe, or kisetten as it was called here. Many cafes were emerging all around Japan due to the Western influence, and this was just one of them. Mitsuri sat across from me and she was enjoying her castella. She cupped her cheek with one hand while using a fork to feed herself with the other. She would also give me a melodious hum of satisfaction which I truly wished I could hear, but I could tell it was pretty just from the vibrations. Castella was expensive as hell for no reason and she wanted 10. But seeing her eat like that was worth every yen. Is it good? She replied with a nod as her mouth was stuffed with the sponge cake, but she gave me a radiant smile that was just as loud as any yell of affirmation would be. I returned a small smile and sipped my tea. I enjoyed watching her eat because she was beautiful, but she didn't show any discomfort because she had gotten used to my staring. We enjoyed the early rays of the morning sun in the cafe, but by the time the sun had fully risen, it was time to drop the bad news to her. Mitsuri, the reason why I called you here was because I wanted to tell you something. I began and I watched every movement of her face to read her reaction. I have to leave. Her face just froze. I could not read her at all because all her facial expressions just froze like ice. I know this is sudden, but there is no better way to say it, I said, but still, I saw no reaction from her. Even her heart completely halted its beat. I'll miss you. I plan on leaving today, so this will probably be the last time we see each other for a while, I said, and finally, she exploded. I was deaf, but even I knew that was loud. What? Leaving? Why? Where does she slammed against the table and stood up before bombarding questions at me, but I put a finger on her lips to silence her. I also pushed her boobs to stop them from jiggling because I did not want to be distracted by them while we were on a serious topic. Settle down please, it won't make much of a difference if you scream, I said. She took a deep breath and settled back into her seat. She leaned forward, using her boobs as a pillow while she brought her face close to mine. Maybe she hoped to seek answers behind my eyes with how intently she was looking at me. Why? That was the most important question to her. I could see cracks of vulnerability on her face when she asked. She probably wondered if she did something wrong or if I was fed up with her. It was nothing like that. I made sure to show that with gentle eyes. Remember what I told you yesterday? She nodded. I am a demon slayer and the strongest amongst them, which means I am important. I have been taking a break for 3 months now. It is time for me to return to my duty, I said. I see, she said, and withdrew from my face. A silence settled between us and I allowed her to process what was said, the little that was said. In only just a month, our relationship had seen much growth. Her because I was the one who helped her get over her issues, and me because I knew her and liked her from my previous life. Our time together was unlike the time I spent with Connie, Shinobu or any other person, because when we hung out, we did it solely to get to know each other and to enjoy the other's company. There were no jobs or missions in between. When will you come back? She finally asked after some time. I'll visit frequently, I replied. It's not like we won't see each other again, only that the time between our meetings will be longer. The area around the city was under my territory anyway, so it wouldn't be much trouble to visit her monthly when we get breaks. There isn't anything much I can do, is there? She finally said with a helpless smile. It saddens me to see her so down. I'm afraid not, I said and reached out to pat her head. Her hair was soft and fluffy like a weird mix between silk and cotton. It's okay. Like you said, we'll meet again, she said, more to herself than to me. I knew she had a lot more things to say which she pushed down because she was not brave enough to say it. Her beating heart, her throat contraction and her breath told me so. But she was afraid of annoying me by being too clingy, and she felt that it was not in her place to tell me what to do when we were just fiancé. A part of me wanted to bring her with me, but more of me wanted her to stay and be safe. I was here now and I could work to cover everything she would have contributed if she became a Hashira. She didn't need to be in danger, she didn't need to fight when she didn't like fighting. Enough of this heavy mood. This will be our last date for a while, so let's enjoy it, I said, and she joined my enthusiasm not long after. Yeah, let's go have the best time ever. And so, we left the cafe to start the date. Since we wanted to enjoy ourselves as much as possible, we did what both of us liked. Cloth shopping? And I'll cut anyone who says it's gay. If you remember, I was quite a fashion enthusiast since I appreciated appearance and beauty. This was also not just any cloth shopping, it was kimono shopping. We went to the most popular shopping district, which was known for its kimono, both handmade and machine-made. They had everything from plain colors to the most colorful ones, ranging from dirt cheap ones to noble luxurious ones. We both tried many different kimonos and asked each other for opinions. Mitsuri was into the colorful ones with patterns while I preferred plain ones with nifty designs and the right measurements. Because in my opinion, no matter how beautiful it was, as long as it did not fit you perfectly and complement your shape, it was only a disappointment. A rainbow vomit if I were honest. To my eyes, such imperfection was triggering and the opposite of beauty and elegance. Why don't you try this? I said, showing her a pink kimono with good patterns. Pink suits you. Okay, she said before taking it and running to the changing room. When she came out again, I had a thoughtful look. I was facing a problem. She looked good in absolutely everything. It didn't matter what kimono she wore, she looked extremely beautiful. Clothes were meant to make you beautiful, but she made clothes beautiful instead. Her body had the perfect proportions. She was built like a hentai heroine. Small shoulders, generous breasts, and then she had a small waist and wide childbearing hips that created the famous hourglass figure. That's not all. As your gaze lowered, you would be met with thick supple thighs and a perfect rear the shape of a heart. It makes me want to write a wish fulfillment fanfiction. That time I got reincarnated as Mitsuri's favorite chair. We'll take that too, I said to the owner of the store. That too? Why don't you just buy the whole store at this point? Ha ha ha. She laughed while she held a mountain of kimono. I simply stared at her, contemplating. Wait, seriously. In the end, Mitsuri convinced me not to buy the store. She picked 2 kimonos that she liked and said she didn't need more. I ended up buying one for myself as well, plus a new haori which was not fully white but had purple cubic patterns for decoration. After we were done shopping we went to a kabuki theater to watch a play. I proposed to watch a normal play but Mitsuri, being the sweetheart that she was, said she preferred to watch a shadow play. She chose this while keeping my deafness in mind. There was no dialogue in shadow play and it relied on visual storytelling, so she thought it would be a better experience for me. We watched the shadow play, enjoying ourselves with the story of two couples who got separated by the horrors of war. I was worried that it might have a tragic ending and make her not only sad but compare our situation with the story, but luckily, they both survived and married and lived happily after the war. Finally, we ended the date with how we began, food. We visited a total of 6 restaurants where we both ordered a normal quantity of food. We created this perfect strategy in our earlier dates. We get to try the foods of different restaurants while not attracting any unwanted attention from the sheer amount of food we consume. Well, mostly Mitsuri, but I ate well above the standard as well. After the end, I walked Mitsuri to her home. We also indulged in the absolute debauchery of unprotected hand-holding as we walked. "Why are you looking at me so intently, silly?" Mitsuri asked while we walked in the calm of the evening. "I was just wondering where all the food went. Your stomach remains completely flat," I said while looking at her belly. She blushed deep red, much to my amusement, but then her eyes shone with a hint of mischief and the desire to get back at me. "I don't know, maybe here," she said and suddenly shoved her boobs up. But much to her disappointment, my face was stone cold. "Call me Alex Piera." Or maybe not, because she had a teasing smile on her face, much like Connie. "Impossible? My face would never betray me? You're so cute when you blush," she said, and I was genuinely caught off guard. Was she verbally teasing me back? She never did that. Was it because we won't see each other for a while? Nevertheless, who's blushing? I'm not blushing. The proof was in her eyes. When I looked at my reflection in her emerald eyes, my face was absolutely stoic. She smiled wider and pinched my ear. Only when her fingers touched my ears did I notice how cold her fingers were. Or were my ears heating up? They are, aren't they? Don't tell me people could see me blush from my ears all this time. What am I, a fucking tsundere waifu? I covered my ears instantly, causing her to giggle. "Har har, very funny," I said, keeping my hands on my ears. "Maybe I should grow my hair just to hide it?" A few minutes passed and we reached the Kanroji compound. God, why did her house have to be so close? I wouldn't mind if it was still a couple 100 miles away. "Well, this is it," she said and folded her arms behind her back. She turned around and faced me. "Goodbye, CG. Goodbye, Mitsuri." She smiled and waited for a few seconds longer than necessary, as if she were waiting for something. I knew what she was waiting for, and I was hoping for it too. But my dumb ass remained rooted in place like a whole tree. She released a breath she didn't know she was holding. Nothing happened. "Come on, aren't you gonna do it?" my mind questioned me. "Bye," she whispered and turned around. Then she walked away. Before she left an arm's reach, I grabbed her hand and gave a small tug. She released a cute yelp and spun around to land on my chest. The moment she looked up, I leaned down and gave her a small peck on her lips. It was brief, it was soft and a little wet. It was perfect. I fucking did it. Mitsuri quickly turned beet red in my arms, and I know this was out of the script, but I leaned in and gave her another peck on her lips. This time, I felt it more clearly. Her lips were warm and they were like the most tender petal of a flower. Finally, I released her. "I'll see you again soon," I said, and my shamelessness suddenly ran out. I had used up all of my courage and the few I borrowed from God knows where. So with the speed of the fastest Hashira, I fled the scene like a criminal who had just committed a crime. It was my first kiss. I would regret running away years later because that was not cool at all. But we all had our first kiss at some point, right? So you guys should understand me. It was nerve-wracking, on par with peeking at Musen Kibutsuji. Must-see image. Important note, the reason CG's romantic development with Mitsuri is much quicker than Connie and Shinobu is that the Koko sisters never made any advances on him. Shinobu liked their friendship and never really made a move other than secretly crushing on him. Connie is at the stage of denial where she holds herself back from loving her sister's crush/best friend. On the other hand, Mitsuri is all in on it. She laid her feelings bare for CG to see, without holding back. She knows what she wants. She wants to love and to be loved. In the anime too, we see her trying everything she could to change just so she would find love and a husband. It is also both their first love and experience, so things develop quickly. Mitsuri is the love Hashira for a reason. The Koko sisters would need to up their game if they don't want him to be snatched by Mitsuri. Chapter 60, The Return of the Main Character. CG's POV. At the crack of dawn, I left the city of Tokyo with a small smile and a heavy heart. I thought I would never say this, but I was going to miss the city, even with the high possibility of Musen Kibutsuji living in it. Because I had people I was going to miss. After gaining enough power and becoming the strongest demon slayer, my relationship with my aunt and uncle became deeper on my part as I finally had the courage to do so. Not only that, I had a fiancé, and it was not just any girl but Mitsuri fucking Kanroji. Suffice it to say, I would be returning after a month or two. I took my time traveling through the thick temperate forest of Japan. I did not want to tire myself because I needed to adjust my body to a new sleeping schedule where night was day and day was night. If I tire myself too much, I'll be sleepy at night. Raven was on top of my head. She seemed to be in a good mood due to the fact that it was just the two of us again. I swear she acts more like a cat than a bird sometimes. After I was miles away from the city, a Kashgai crow finally flew above me. I had a small smile on my face. I was itching to slice some demon up after the long vacation. When you describe me as a character, I hope you remember the deep passion I have for my job. A really deep passion. I read the movement of the crow's throat to understand the mission. Raven also translated it to me with Morse code and I made sure there was no miscommunication. No individual mission? That's unfortunate, I said while processing the retail of the mission. The North that place was wet and had leeches this time around. Ew. Wait, Connie is going after a lower moon, I said, trying to push down the chilling premonition that immediately invaded my mind. Nothing bad would happen. I warned her so. It seems like the Demon Slayer Corps was having a rough time with their most important pillar going on a break. So much so that they would send their healer on an investigation mission, which normally takes very long. I could imagine the amount of missions piling up since I was no longer speedrunning through them. Well, it's good to disappear like this sometimes. It makes people appreciate your presence when they see the consequences of your absence. I thought to myself as I changed the direction of my travel to the far north. Am I allowed to think like that when said consequence could mean the loss of many lives? I thought while humming. How much of what I do is due to my job/duty? How much of it is a product of hate? How much of me is a genuinely good person who wants people to stop dying? I asked myself in silence. One thing about being an adolescent was that you started to ask questions with no answers in an attempt to find your identity and know yourself. Am I a good person or am I a bad person? I entertained such thoughts while traveling to the north. It has been some time since I last saw Connie. I hope she is doing okay. That woman is a ticking time bomb, but I don't want to worry too much and raise red flags. Unconsciously, I quickened my steps, breaking my perfect movement to cover the distance faster and more efficiently. After traveling for more than half a day, I finally reached the Aomori region. By that time, the sun had long since set and demons began crawling out of their hellhole. I stood atop a ridge and observed the horizon. I was not enjoying the scenery. Instead, my eyes carefully observed every little thing in the forest. My vision zoomed in and zoomed out through different areas. I could see squirrels fighting for nuts on the right side of the forest. I saw a mother bird vomiting worms and feeding her chicks in the center. I saw a snake stalking its prey on the ground. I saw leaves falling due to the wind and I saw fishes dancing in a small pond. My eyes were many times more powerful than the eyes of hawks and eagles. Although processing all the information from such a wide range could be exhausting, I pushed myself. After 10 or so minutes standing on that ridge, I finally saw a Kashgai crow in the furthest part of the horizon. The small flower decorating its head was all I needed to realize whom that crow belonged to. Connie, I said. The crow was flying around in search of assistance. It was not an emergency, but it showed that Connie needed help. How many times had it been like this? I asked myself while readying myself to take action. I had been getting Connie out of a sticky situation more times than I could count. This mainly had to do with the fact that she was supposed to die around this year. I was more focused on her, making sure she was safe. Thunder breathing, first form. I crouched down and loaded my leg like a spring. Thunderclap and flash, 20% output, 50-fold. I burst out like a terrible hurricane and used my modified first form for a total of 50 steps. My speed was not at maximum but my muscles were less strained as a result. It was a new application of the first form I invented. I could cover up to 30 kilometers at incredible speed using this technique. I used the branches of the trees to propel myself forward. My feet never touched the ground. After talking 50 steps with thunder breathing, I found myself in a completely different area altogether. The Kashgai crow was much closer on the horizon and with my eyes, I could finally see the situation that needed assistance. My eyes narrowed, ignoring the distance while I looked upon the scene kilometers away as if I was there myself. I sighed in relief when I saw Connie struggling to fight against a group of demons led by a lower moon. The situation was grave but it was nothing compared to what I feared the most. Flower breathing is horrible against a group of enemies, I said while shaking my head. Although her life was not in danger, I suppose I should help her. I pulled out my sword from the sheath and grabbed at the long hilt. I brought my sword above my shoulder, which was completely different from how it was meant to be held. I was holding the otaki like a spear. Why? Because I was going to use it as such. My pupils shrank as I stopped focusing on one area. It was like a mix between unblurring the background and zooming out in a camera. Instead of zooming in on one area and seeing the details, my eyes started calculating the distance, the movement of the wind and the exact angle which I needed to hit my target. My brain processed the information and commanded my body to execute a calculated action. I did not even do this intentionally, it was all unconscious. Like how you unconsciously calculate the trajectory, speed and other factors of an object before you catch it. It was what any human could do, but I pushed the limit to a frightening degree. Esoteric art, breathing styles, thunder wind breathing, unerring lance. The muscles in my arm exploded, producing the sound of thunder due to the sheer release of sudden force. I threw my blade like a spear, its edge sliced through the atmosphere and traveled to the target with incredible accuracy. It took a few seconds before my sword plunged itself right between the groups of demons and Connie. They all paused for a moment to observe the strange sword that came out of nowhere. Oops. I was aiming for the boss. I guess no matter how overpowered my eyes were, it was not enough to hit a target from kilometers away with a sword thrown like a lance. But that was enough because I saw Connie's lips curve in a small smile and the demons shrunk when they took a closer look at the sword. I used thunder breathing to reach them as quickly as possible. Chapter 61, Main Character's Aura. Third POV. Connie Coco. Fuck. Such profanity rarely left the pretty lips of Connie Coco, but if one looked at the situation she was in, they would no doubt understand her and say her curse was justified. And what exactly was the situation she found herself in? Well, she was surrounded by a few dozen or so high-level demons. That alone would give any Hashira a run for their money, but to make matters worse, there was a lower moon leading them. Fortunately for her, the lower moon was ranked 5th, which meant that the demon was one of the weakest even among the lower moon demons. She knew this from the kanji number 5, etched in his left eye. Nevertheless, it was a very problematic situation that she found herself in. You have no hope of getting out of this alive. You will die and I will feast on your corpse before I bring your head to him. The lower moon said while watching from a safe distance. The demon was a coward. And he will reward me with his blood for a job well done, the lower moon said with ecstasy. Was it normal for demons to get hard when revealing their evil plan? She thought to herself when she saw the tent in his pants. She wanted to bleach her eyes when she saw that. She moved with the grace of a dancer and the elegance of a painter while dodging the attacks coming from all the demons around her. The sound of her sword fending them off was the only thing reigning in the surroundings other than the nasty growls of the demons. She was tired. She had been investigating the demon for almost a week now and it was filled with exhausting work because the demon was smart and deliberately destroying her mentally before ambushing her. Honestly, Connie wondered how CG did all those investigation missions so easily. When he was active, they never had to worry about such jobs. Stop moving, damn it, one demon screamed and lunged at her with reckless abandon. She smiled seeing that. Finally, it was the opening she was waiting for. It was a mistake from the enemy which she planned to take full advantage of. Flower breathing, 4th form. The world turned pink and flowers started coming to life. Crimson Hanagoromo, her blade became a beautiful flower that curved and twisted in itself. The demon tried to block her slash but it simply curved into the opening and sliced his head off. The splash of demonic blood and the trail of her blade creates the image of a blooming flower. The demons nearby paused as a sweet smell assaulted their senses. They were momentarily awed by the scene. Connie at that moment looked like an angel. She smiled. She can manage this. Flower breathing, 5th form. Her arm became loose, dangling like a new plant, a young flower. That was until it burst into action and painted beautiful curves of 9 slashes. Flowers bloomed, and her movement was poetry in motion, the best of grace. In one single instance when demons drew breath, 9 heads fell. Blood splattered violently but strangely enough, not a drop touched her, as if the world was careful to not stain her beauty. It was violence at its most beautiful. Beauty at its most cruel. Peonies of futility, she whispered before the demons dissipated. What the hell are you guys doing? Go. Attack her before she kills anyone else. The lower moon was the first to escape from the trance. Connie exhaled sharply, blowing her bangs up before she engaged against the demons once more. After that, there was no more opening she could take advantage of. Flower breathing relied a lot on the eyes of the user. In a sense, it was basically CG's normal fighting style but watered down. The user fought best when they could focus on one enemy instead of multiple since they didn't have special eyes like CG who could process and focus on multiple opponents at once. A pair of eyes could only focus on one enemy at a time. So with no more openings, Connie was slowly pushed back. The lower moon also joined the fight a few times which made her defeat even quicker. But the lower moon never engaged in a long fight, fearing that she might have a trump card. Which she did. Do I really need to use that? She thought to herself. She was referring to the final form of flower breathing that could enhance the user's eyes so that they could see in slow motion. However, the technique could cause the rupture of blood vessels in the eyes and cause partial blindness, so it was a risky technique that she preferred not to use. If she used it, she would no doubt win this confrontation or at least assure her survival. But she was still hesitant to do so, hoping she would find a better way out of this. CG. The image of a purple boy appeared in her mind and she immediately became flustered and embarrassed. She almost lost focus and allowed a demon to slash at her. It was understandable. After all, it was shameful that she was hoping for help from him even though she was supposed to be his senior. She couldn't help it. If someone was always there to have your back for so many times, you would naturally start relying on it. And CG had always been there for her. Every single time some trouble emerged in her life, he was there to save her. This was because CG, knowing that Connie would be in danger soon according to canon, was fully focused on her. Whenever she was on a mission, he would also remain close to her and immediately rush to her when she was in need, fearing that it would be her end. He did this to other Hashiras too, but he gave his everything when it came to her. This had been happening for almost a year now, ever since she turned 17. Which was the year when she would encounter Doma and die according to the canon timeline. It was this exact care that CG showed which made her eventually fall for him. Which, by the way, she still hadn't accepted yet. It was impossible for a virgin girl to not fall in love when a man showed her such care and attention. For no particular reason as well from Connie's perspective. She was fine till the 4th time he helped her, but from then on, he slowly grew in her heart. Such protectiveness really tickled her femininity. There was no way else to put it. She shook her head, dispersing all thoughts because the claws of one demon came too close to her liking. It was lucky that they didn't have tricky blood demon art. She took a sharp breath and leapt back to create distance. She brought her sword close to her chest and her posture changed. A sudden stillness fell in the air and even the demons stopped. Every instinct collectively screamed out, "Danger!" Connie blinked. She was just about to use the final form of flower breathing but was left confused. The breathing technique never had such weight before. Was it really her? No. It couldn't be her because she felt the danger too, like something stronger than all of them combined was watching them. It was then that they heard a sharp whistle. It was the sound of a blade cutting through the atmosphere like butter. Unbothered by the laws of physics, it flew straight at them. Thunder followed. Asterisk boom, asterisk. Then a long sword, the color of purple, planted itself on the ground, separating Connie from the groups of demons. The ground shook and the force stirred up a cloud of smoke. But even when the dust settled, no one moved an inch. Even the demons stopped. It was as if the blade had created an invisible line separating Connie from the demon. The two groups were in different dimensions entirely. The demons were evil and violent, yet even they didn't dare cross the invisible line. They stared at the sword which was planted on the ground. Evil demon. The demons read the kanji on the sword. The letters seemed to call out to them. Destroyer. That's another Hashira. The lower moon gasped and looked in every direction rapidly, afraid that someone would ambush him too. It's a long sword. It's purple, one of the demons said and shrunk back in fear. Demons were as smart as any human. The only difference was that they were more aggressive and they had supernatural powers. So like any human society, rumors also spread amongst the demons. Everyone knew whose blade that was. The long katana and the purple color made it unique from every other sword. Seiji Shigen. He was the most dangerous Hashira because he had no weakness, unlike the others. He also had the ability to pinpoint any ticks used by demons. Terrorizing a village used to be the most efficient way to live for a demon, and only the very top demons were able to enjoy this privilege. But now, no one ever wanted to do it. No one wanted to control or terrorize a village. Because if you did, the purple Hashira would come to your village, find out instantly any tricks or manipulation you used, and he would hunt you in the daylight. You cannot hide. Hiding was not the best way to survive anymore. Running was. Your best survival was trying to run from the now fastest Hashira. Because you couldn't hide from the purple Hashira. And it was said that the Hashira was the most brutal demon slayer of all. They said it was because he was deaf and he couldn't hear you begging, screaming, or crying. He was absolutely ruthless. The cruelest one is the deaf Hashira. Beware of the deaf Hashira. Run from the purple. The sun is kinder than the long sword. At least, that's how the rumors went. So they knew him, they knew Seiji Shigen. Of course, they would know him. After all, he had completed more missions than most of the Hashiras that ever existed in just 2 years. Such a massacre would not go unnoticed by the demons. He is still far away. He is kilometers away, the lower moon suddenly exclaimed after checking the scent in the air. Kill that tick quickly, the lower moon commanded. After hesitating once more, the demons attacked Connie again, but this time, they were not able to push her back anymore. Their spirit was already beaten and they fought with eyes on their back, fearing that the purple one would reach them by now. Their main concern was on escape routes instead of the Connie. On the other hand, Connie fought with everything she could, without conserving energy to prolong the fight because she knew Seiji would reach her soon. Half a minute passed. Wait, how is he already this close? The lower moon suddenly said after catching a scent in the air again. Seiji used thunder breathing so he easily covered the distance. Now the lower moon was panicked. Run. They turned around and were about to run and escape from different directions, but it was all too late. Because by the time they decided to run, the hilt of the long sword already found a hand. Esoteric art, breathing styles, a cold whisper. The only sound. Storm breathing, water plus wind plus thunder, first form. Tempest fury. Maybe it would have been better to die by the beautiful flower breathing, because what came next was the most violent way a demon could die. Their bodies splattered throughout the forest, torn apart, blown apart before everything else was ripped and minced. Demon image, and please add waifu image Hanti. Chapter 62, Master of Breathing Styles. Seiji's POV. My arm stung after throwing my sword. You could imagine how taxing it would be to use thunder breathing and wind breathing simultaneously when thunder breathing alone strained the body. If I were not such a bullshit character, then it would have been impossible for anyone. You have to remember that no one could learn sun breathing because it was really stressful for the body, so Yoriichi had to teach the early Hashiras a watered-down version of sun breathing and help them shape their style. In a way, one breathing style was all the human body should be able to take. But I was an anomaly due to my body, which was trained perfectly since I was young, and because of my impeccable mastery over breathing styles. Mixing breathing styles was like using 2 languages in one sentence. Still, even I had limits. My current limit was using 2 breathing styles at once. Of course, this was still more taxing to the body than normal breathing, so I mostly used it to finish my opponents instantly. Fortunately, I was constantly improving my technique and my body was also growing stronger, so I pushed this limit day by day. Eventually, I hope to be able to use all breathing styles at once. Still won't stop after being warned, huh? I said with mirthless chuckles while looking at the scene kilometers away. I inhaled sharply. Raven flew off my head and I lowered my body, locking my joints like a spring. Purple lighting crackled around my body, and the ground caved in due to the weight of my raw strength. Then I exploded out with the speed of lighting and the intensity of thunder. Thunder clap and flash, tenfold. Although I just spammed the technique before, I forced my body to do it once more. I would count this as my monthly leg day. In just half a minute, I reached the place where the fighting took place. The demons immediately turned around to flee, but it was all too late. Should have taken the warning when they had the chance. The world was in slow motion from my perspective as I carefully inspected the situation. The lower moon was ranked 5 and with a glance, I could tell that he was weak, much weaker than the one I slayed before I became Hashira. The rest of the demons were also nothing in my eyes. They could be a threat to middle to lower ranked demon slayers, but in front of a Hashira, they were cannon fodders. They were ants. Seeing that, I deemed it to be safe enough to train myself. If they posed a real threat, I would have been more cautious, but they did not. So let's do this, let's use 3 breathing styles all at once. An important lesson I learned about mixed breathing was that there were some breathing styles that were impossible to mix. This was because of their opposite nature. For example, if you tried to use 2 breathing styles at once, you could use thunder breathing and wind breathing, thunder breathing and flame breathing, wind breathing and flame breathing. But you could not use flame breathing and water breathing or water breathing and wind breathing. They just had completely different concepts behind them. So you could say there were some breathing styles you could use together and some others that you could not, no matter how skilled you were. But this changed when you use 3 breathing styles at once. At this point, you could use any breathing styles you want and mix them together. So it was possible to use water breathing, wind breathing, and thunder breathing together, even though wind breathing and water breathing opposed each other. This was because thunder breathing acted as a bridge that connected them. Wind breathing was explosive, violent, and chaotic. Water breathing was about precision, adaptability, and accuracy. Then there was thunder breathing, which was a mix between both. It was an explosion but also controlled and precise. If you remember, what made thunder breathing so fast was that you explode out but concentrating on a single point and linear path. Therefore it acted as a bridge between the 2 completely opposite breathing styles. Esoteric art, breathing styles. I whispered while the demons fled. I actually had a name for this. Water breathing, wind breathing, and thunder breathing all together. Storm breathing, first form. Tempest fury. My arm exploded to action as every fiber of the muscles in my arm worked together to produce raw strength in a single instance. Thunder breathing. A shockwave erupted and a small hurricane formed from my swing. Wind blades came to life and ripped apart flesh and bones. Wind breathing. My arm did not lose accuracy even when it moved with such force. The kinetic energy of my swing was controlled and I hit only what I wanted, the demons. Even the wind blades only hit the demons, nothing else, not even a mosquito was not harmed in my attack. Water breathing. Asterisk boom, asterisk. A violent gust of wind turned the demons into mashed flesh and they splattered around the forest. But none of the mess came to my direction. I remained silent and stood in my place. Not because I was trying to act cool, but because my body was genuinely stuck. I kid you not, using 3 breathing at once was not kind to the body. I only used 1 attack and I felt like I just worked out the entire day. This was why I would never use it against a serious opponent yet. It was too ineffective and crippled my body. The human body has limits. I exhaled all of the air in my lungs and finally, I could feel my body again. Although fatigued, I could move. I turned around to lock eyes with Connie, who had awe and wonder in her eyes. My male ego was pleased to impress a pretty girl like her, which by the way was one of the reasons why I did what I did. Training myself was the main reason though. Long time no see, I said. But she did not respond and shifted her eyes to somewhere else. Rude. Behind you, she said. I read the movement of her larynx, so I moved before her words fully left her mouth. I drew my blade, sharp and in perfect condition, and sliced behind me. I could see behind me from the reflection of my blade, so my blade easily found the neck of the lower moon. The sharp edge of my sword bit into his flesh. I did not even put much force as his own momentum pushed against the blade and sliced off his head. His body crashed on my back, blood stained my clothes before he fell. But his decapitated head fell in front of me and landed near my foot. It gave me the chance to stare down at his pathetic state before he disappeared. Luckily, his blood stain also turned into dust. Heck, if Giyu could one-shot lower moon 5, so can I. How did you do that? Do you have eyes behind your back? Connie asked me. She just saw me use 3 breathing styles all at once and wanted to know how I was aware of what was happening behind me. She has priorities all right. Like some of you, complaining about the logic behind my deafness when literally there are much stranger things that define logic here. There is a reason why I always kept my blade in pristine condition. I said. I could see him from the reflection when I drew my blade. Oh, she nodded with a realization. Then she fully stood up and gave me a beautiful smile that was just enough. Welcome back, CG. Please don't leave us for so long again, things were difficult without you, she said. Next time I go on a vacation, I'll have already killed the Demon King, I said, causing her to laugh, not knowing that I was dead serious. You saved me again, huh? How many times did that make? I shrugged. I'm not counting, but a few times. I can't thank you enough. I'm not sure if there even is anything I can do to repay you, she said while tilting her head. You don't need to repay me anything, you give me free healthcare. That is more than enough, I said. If only she knew how much that meant to me. But, I said and crossed my arms and said sternly like a father scolding his daughter. You took an investigation mission by yourself, huh? I thought I told you not to do that. She was lost for words, sorry. How do I explain to someone that they will die soon, so they need to be careful and take my words seriously? Wait, can you even do that? Why should I follow your words like a little girl? What are you, my husband? She asked me in return but soon lost her heat under my narrowed eyes. Is that what it would take to make her listen to me? In my defense, the Demon Slayer Corps was short on manpower. Although I'm ashamed we found out this way, you were doing 3 Hashiras worth of missions, so your absence meant the same as the absence of 3 Hashiras suddenly. I needed to step up or people would continue dying, she said. That was reasonable. If not for the fact that she would die, and last time I checked, the dead helps no one. Well, now that I was back, hopefully, nothing bad would happen. I have done so much that the butterfly effect would probably change the future of Connie by now. It's just that I wanted to make sure, at least until she turned 18. Maybe then I would relax a bit. I sighed. That's fine. Now that I'm back, please avoid dangerous missions, okay? I said. Investigation missions were dangerous specifically because you had no information beforehand. You could be tracking a random demon or the Demon King himself without even knowing. A normal slaying mission where the demon was already identified was much safer compared to it. A short silence followed. Actually, it is always silent for me, but Iquim, before I broke the silence by asking, "Wanna catch a bite?" It's literally midnight. What a dumbass question. Sure, she said and flashed a smile. Okay, maybe it was not a dumbass question. She seemed happy with the idea, enthusiastic even. Let's go. And so we did. Soon after, the fact that there would be no restaurant open during the night hit me, so we literally had to catch a bite. At first, I hunted and tried to kill a rabbit for food, but Connie stopped me, saying that it was too cute to eat. Then I went after a wild pig, but she said it was too dirty and ugly to be eaten. Talk about being spoiled. Finally, we found a deer and it was acceptable to the flower Hashira. Chapter 63, The Love Hashira. 3rd POV. Mitsuri Kanroji. A day without him felt wrong, like a meal without salt if she had to describe the feeling. It was truly odd she felt that way when she had been living 16 years without him. It was only a month ago when they met, but she felt like she'd known him her whole life. And she missed him, as if she had known him her whole life. It's been years, she whispered while gazing up at the blue sky, like she saw him do often. She imagined that anywhere he was, he would look up at the sky too, and at this moment, they would be seeing the same scene. There you go again, lost in thought. It's only been a week, her mother said while stitching patterns on a blanket. A week that feels like years, she thought in her mind. He said he would return after a month, did he not? Stop thinking about him and he will be back in no time, her mother said. How the heck was she supposed to not think about him? Trying not to think about him in itself was thinking about him. Come, help me with this, her mother finally said, and Mitsuri dragged herself up from the veranda and sat down beside her mother. Hold this for me, and cut the threads, her mother said, and Mitsuri moved absent-mindedly. Her body was doing the task, but her mind was not on the same task. She couldn't help but worry. Demons. Those nasty beings that feed on humans and lurk in the night. CG told her that they were stronger than humans and the Demon Slayer Corps was the only shield protecting innocent lives from the demons. CG himself was in the Demon Slayer Corps. No one knew, but he was fighting battles to protect everyone. He was not like those soldiers who killed other humans in wars, he was genuinely protecting humanity. Even though he was not rewarded with medals or fame, he did it for his family who were killed by demons. He fought to make sure no one would face the same tragedy that he did. Mitsuri really admired him. But she couldn't help but worry at the same time. What if he got hurt while fighting against those demons? What if she didn't even want to finish that line of thought. I should be with him, the thought suddenly invaded her mind and wouldn't leave. She was supposed to be his wife, was she not? And the duty of a wife was to always support their husband. Should she really be staying still like this? You are gifted, Mitsuri, you are incredible. CG once told her while he was teaching her some fighting moves so that she could protect herself. He said that all her life, she was forced to hide her strength, so he wanted her to release all those shackles and freely use them. He said she should know the limits of her body. He said it was a crime for her to not know what her body was capable of. You always say that, do you really think so? She said while looking at herself. CG was strong, many times stronger than herself, especially when he used his strange breathing, so she did not have to hold back when she was with him. That also made her feel that she might not be that special. Absolutely. I am certain that you can become stronger than most people with a little bit of training, he said with a smile. She remembers this interaction. Does that not mean that she could become a demon slayer and fight alongside him if she trained? Maybe then she would be more helpful than just staying here. But he told me to wait for Hai, she thought in her mind. Her mind was telling her that CG did not want her to do it. Maybe because he was so protective of her and did not want her to ever be in danger. Yet her heart was telling her to do it. There was a strange calling to the idea of being a demon slayer, as if she was born for it. In the end, Mitsuri was one to follow her heart instead of her mind. She suddenly stood up, spooking her mother, and she yelled out. I have decided, she said with sparkling eyes. What is it, Mitsuri? I have decided to go to him and always stay by his side. What? You don't mean Desh, her mother asked, but Mitsuri was already gone. She ran around the house and into her room. She quickly packed everything she would need. Her mother could only watch in confusion before her father joined. What's going on, dear? I'm not sure myself. I'm still figuring it out, the mother replied. The old couple stood still and watched as their daughter ran around the house, collecting odd things and packing a bag. A few minutes later, she stopped in front of them. Mother? Father? I have decided to go to CG. Mitsuri said with determination. Calm down, dear. Are you sure this is a good idea? Do you even know where he is? Her father asked. All they knew was that Cg would travel around Japan due to things related to his job. Yes, she lied. But she could figure that out later. That still doesn't mean that you should just leave so suddenly, her mother said sternly. I'm sorry mother and father, but I need to do this. My heart is telling me so, she said and quickly fastened her bag behind her. Goodbye, love you, she said and ran out of the house. She was too fast for her parents to say anything. That girl, honestly, her mother said with a helpless shake of her head. Ha ha ha, this reminds me of when she was young, her father laughed. It was not the first time Mitsuri tried to run away from home, but that was only when she was a child and during her early teens when she was getting rejected. Aren't you going to run after her? Her mother asked, to which they both looked down at his belly. He had been putting weights in his older years. He was not as fast as he used to be, so there was no way he would catch up to her. Don't worry, what's the worst that could happen? The father asked. Are you insane? What if she encountered bad men? Her mother said, leaving the father confused. I don't want us to pay for others' medical bills again, she clarified, and the father nodded. Last time Mitsuri was bullied for her hair and catcalled, a single swing sent a man flying and he broke many bones. I'll send a servant to follow her, the father said, and immediately left for the courtyard. Mitsuri stood on the outskirts of the city. She looked at all of the different roads leading to different places and she did not know which one to choose. Maybe she should have planned better before she ran off. Now she did not know what to do. Should I just return? Maybe I should ask Cg's parents and try again tomorrow, she said with a sigh. A blush appeared on her cheeks due to embarrassment as well. She was not really the type to think things through. She was a bit of a musclehead. She was about to return when a crow suddenly landed on the branch of a tree nearby, and much to her shock, the crow started speaking in a very deep and commanding voice. Miss Kanroji, I was going to respect Cg's wishes and not intrude in your life, but I see that you have come to a decision, the crow said while staring straight into her soul. Honestly, Mitsuri wanted to scream, but a part of her was fascinated. How do you know me? She asked. We know a lot of people, Miss Kanroji. My master is constantly in search of new talents. There was no way we would have missed someone as special as you, the crow said. Let me ask you one thing, Miss Kanroji. Do you want to be a demon slayer and fight beside your fiancé Cg Shigen? Mitsuri blinked, equally creeped out and impressed that the crow knew so much. But the answer was obvious, it came from the heart. Yes. She felt like the crow smiled at her answer. Then follow me. Saying so, the crow took to the sky and Mitsuri followed after him. And so, Mitsuri set off to chase after her love. Must see image.